Hippocrates, I have heard about your research into the composition of man. Your methods are impeccable, and I commend you on not focusing on the realm of gods, but on nature itself to determine the course of the disease. I have been told your method of taking a draught of blood and allowing it to settle without clotting to cause the four humors to form. Having a surfeit of blood myself, I performed the experiment and in fact did witness the split into the red blood, white phlegm, and yellow and black bile. The fact that it is then connected back to the elements of the world, air, water, fire, and earth, demonstrate how man is a world unto itself. But here is where I found something further in my own fluids. Perhaps you have not found this humor? I say this because there are not 4 elements, but 5, as seen in the mysteries of Pythagoras' pentagram. Asclepius himself had 5 daughters, and so there must indeed be a 5th humor. I know not what this 5th fluid I found is, but know that the 5th element is the void, the space between stars and the element that conveys light. You will find the 5th humor when you see the space between the stars. Empedocles. Socrates. We have not had opportunity before to speak, but I must commend you and speak with you, demigod to demigod. You might claim you are no demigod, but I have been speaking with a close traveling companion who assures me it is the case. You are one of 5 great men to walk this earth, proclaiming to make sense of what we perceive and conceive. The other 4, in far-off lands, are here to chase out gods and bring wisdom. My companion has shown me the joyous flow of life of the 24th, the storm's calm center of an enlightened prince, the bright embrace of action and inaction by Li Air, and the solid statesmanship of the great Kong, and has proven that your influence will be more diaphanous still, floating weightlessly like starlight through the hearts and minds of all men. It must be this way, for when the time for an idea comes, the idea comes. Time is relentless, at once both epical, marking history by stelae, and interval, changing moment to moment. May we embrace the changes necessary to prevent stasis from gaining hold. Embrace the teachings of the 4 you will never meet and know you are yet that 5th. Empedocles. Euripides. It warms my heart to see your tetralogy do so well. Weep not for the play you lost in creating them. Philoctetes and Dictys were moving to the core, and we can all laugh raucously with the Restae, but it is Medea that stands out the most. Fear not that her killing of her sons caused everyone to recoil in horror. It will play far after any of us have passed. I am fortunate that my traveling companion brought my eyes and ears to Athens to feast upon the spectacle. One thing I must offer, fear not your belief in passion. Far too often the people turn to the gods to explain themselves, but as a strict physician and naturalist, I am well aware that gods die in 3s, but stars rise in 5s. That Medea kills her brood is only the natural way. If we ever fully embrace love or embrace strife, we will see the world end. End it will by an order as everything crystallizes into a single moment, or by a chaos as all falls apart, all decays to nothingness. Life exists only in the balance, and sometimes the drastic must be done. Empedocles. Anaxagoras. Your views on atomism, aggregation, and disruption have been crucial in my development of the balance between love and strife that our universe depends on. For that, I thank you. And yet, I feel I must inform you of the greatest of Pythagorean secrets. Yes, with the pentagram, there is necessary reverence in the number 5. However, the secret is this. Just as there is another sense behind our ears, in addition to our 5 we cannot perceive, just as there is another digit, invisible and intangible, on each of our hands, there is another number between 1 and 5. It is not a 6th number, as that would be 6, but a hidden number, impossible to count. What this means is that the 5 elements of the universe are insufficient to explain it, but there is another, one without substance. It is only now, as the world pushes away from superstition from gods and finds solace in the thoughts of man, that this new element, this element of the uncountable number, can be found. My traveling companion tells me that this is time, the only item that even allows for the possibility of change. It is through time that aggregation and disruption have any meaning, that holds the universe between freezing in stasis and blown like scattered dust to irrelevance. The world is thinking in unison. Aggregation is dominant. I fear the state of love and the end of all time comes soon. Empedocles. Pausanias, my great love, it pains me to write to you. You have always studied so willingly at my feet, taken care of me as I age, and know that you will continue my work when I am no longer here. I love you more than anything. The world approaches consensus, is killing gods with abandon and replacing them with thoughts. Pythagorean tuning theory has grown, and the world beneath our feet hums in harmonics as the song reaches a crescendo. Far to the north, past the sea and impassable mountains, far into barbarian lands, stands a temple to this harmony, this love. It is as magnificent as any temple, even more so, and timeless in its nature, a tribute to Golgotha. You must never go there. It is there I must travel with my companion, instill strife upon the world, ensure that all time does not freeze as one moment. Not now, not yet. Weep for me, Pausanias. Your tears and cries will help feed the starving maw of disruption the world so desperately craves. Empedocles. These letters have been dated back to approximately 430 BC and are held in the Foundation's non-anomalous records archive. Note that despite their non-anomalous nature, they have been classified as top secret at level 4 access. Research into what they refer to is ongoing. Of note is that Empedocles is believed to have ended his life by throwing himself into Mount Etna in 430 BC. Pausanias, his Eromenos, reported finding a single bronze sandal of Empedocles tossed from Mount Etna. He also mentioned that the volcano smoked heavily for days afterward. His throat rumbled with song as he laid a bleeding finger on the strings of the lyre, surveying the crowd's state since the echoes of his last notes. The scene was chaotic. Buildings were burning, corpses were starting to decay, and the crowd lay before him on the ground and attempted to tend to each other's wounds. It was ecstasy. He studied the score on the ground before looking back up. He plucked the first string and the rest followed suit. Conflicting harmonies rang through the air as he continued to play, humming along with the frail semblance of a tempo he had constructed. The audience suddenly resumed their dance as they moved against their will. Servants and philosophers alike begged for mercy, to be released and to go free. He heard their requests as the notes gradually lost their tune and meaning. For a brief second, the thought of stopping flashed in his head. He didn't care. As the city continued to burn around them, a spirit entered him. His fingers came to a halt and the music came to life. The ground had started to shift and turn. Chords dragged themselves out from under the dirt. Keys formed husks out of urine, and melodies buzzed through the air as they observed possible prey. Everyone had stopped dancing to watch it unfold, staring agape at the wonders before them. Minutes hung in the air. Flames popped and crackled. The man observed the stillness around them, as if waiting for permission to move. His eyes moved to the score still on the ground, looking back up at him. It was waiting for its conductor to resume. After a moment's hesitation, he put his lyre down on the ground and snapped his fingers as he complied with its wishes. The music descended onto the crowd. Servants were scorched, their flesh turned to a crisp. Philosophers were sliced open, entrails spilling into the ashes. Children jabbed their nails into dirt as they were forcibly dragged into the cracks of the ground. The pit was complete anarchy, and all involved were singing beautiful heavenly notes. The lyre had started to play itself, and the music it produced was that which he had so desired to play as everything burned. Regrettably, he thought to himself, none would remain to capture in detail this wondrous scene. Everything would be burned and whittled away, and the only remains would be ash. Nero understood this and knew he had no more to accomplish with the performance. He picked up the score. Blood trickled onto it, and satisfaction filled him. He flipped the score over and found just enough empty space. Foreign ideas and thoughts rustled in his head, and inspiration burrowed itself in him. There was still more for him to do. The symphony continued to play as he began diligently composing. The barbed knife ripped through the girl's throat. Her body slumped to the cold flagstones, her dark hair settling on the pool of blood before her. Reflections writhed on the slick crimson surface as the chill mountain winds pulled and twisted at the flames of the courtyard torches. The old woman made herself watch as the girl died. Then she raised her eyes to the man holding the blade. The soldiers had left. 30 of her kin lay dead. She and this man were the only living things that remained in this castle, on this mountain. An old woman, a bloodied warrior, and the knife. "Get up, Baba," the man said roughly. He took her arm and pulled her to her feet. He spoke her language, she realized with a start. He had used another tongue with the soldiers, harsh to her ears. But through all of the killing, he had been silent. His movements had been ritual, but deft and efficient. Beyond her horror, she could even see a beauty in them. The thought made her sick. The man turned her to face him, still gripping her wrist. "Look at me, Baba. Do you know me?" She saw his coal-black hair and olive skin, his lithe figure, stripped to the waist and smeared with drying blood. She looked into his dark eyes, burning. The terror pooling in her stomach grew deeper and thicker. She broke her gaze. "The rumors say you are called the Dragon's Son," she said, voice low. The warrior inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I have a task for you, grandmother." The diminutive was laced with casual contempt. She had expected death, another body amid the slaughter. The idea that he would spare her, the eldest of her family, felt cruel and mocking. Her jaw tensed as her fear mingled with new emotions. Hatred, confusion, and underneath it all, a small but defiant hope. If he felt that tension in her, that hope, the man did not show it. He dropped her wrist. "Leave this place," he continued. "Go and tell your people what you have seen tonight. They will respect your words. Tell them that I am real. Tell all of the Romani that Wallachia has a new prince, and that they shall serve me, or bleed." She looked at the scarlet fingerprints he had left on her wrist, and her anger flared. "The Roma do not serve. We have no princes," she said fiercely. But the warrior laughed at her. "Do you think you are the first to say that? I have broken warriors and enslaved cities. I have traveled here with 50 men, and I will rule Wallachia within the year. I shall carve up Moldavia and Transylvania like roasting lambs. The Ottomans will fear me and fall before me. You gypsies are nothing. Yet the Roma will not serve." It was the stubbornness of long years crowding out her dread. "Then I will show you the cost," the warrior said. He reached toward her face faster than she could react, and she felt his fingers rub blood, still wet, still warm, across her eyelids. The world spun, and her eyes opened on a rust-colored nightmare. She was looking down on an army encampment, which grew ever closer. The moon's light was garnet and ruby, the shadows black. She fell nearer to the soldiers, spying their turbans and scimitars. Suddenly, tents across the camp were ablaze, sending men and horses into a panic. As the fires roared, dark figures raced between them, slaughtering the confused soldiers. At their head, the warrior's face was lit by flames and bloody moonlight. Then the vision was gone, and she was walking through a dense forest, the light still red. She felt pulled forward inexorably. As she squeezed through the mass of tall, bare trunks, a drop of liquid on her shoulder drew her gaze upward to the corpses hanging over her. There were no trees. She was in a forest of stakes, a thicket of the impaled. Men, women, children, hundreds of bodies, thousands. She could see no end to them. They hung slack from the poles, driven through them from every angle, sharpened points protruding from mouths, necks, limbs, bellies. The sheer weight of them looming above staggered her, but she kept walking, drawn forward despite herself. Blood dripped steadily from above as her weakened legs led her up a small rise. She emerged from the forest of the dead into a clearing and saw the warrior. He was standing at the crest of the hill, a young girl in white on a stone slab before him. From all directions, streams of blood were flowing up the hill towards him, gathering in a pool at his feet. The stakes stretched around in every direction, death as far as she could see. The warrior leaned down and grasped the girl, and as he bit into her neck, his eyes flicked up and met the old woman's. And then she was back in the courtyard, in the cold night. The warrior looked at her imperiously. "Dhampir!" she cursed. "Blood demon!" She pulled a wooden crucifix from her belt and thrust it towards him, her other hand fumbling in her pockets. The warrior spread his hands wide. As she advanced, he stepped cautiously backwards, stopping with his feet in the pool of blood. She hesitated, and again he laughed. A swift gesture from the warrior, and the crucifix snapped in her hand, the arms of the crosspiece falling to the flagstones. The Christ figure had been twisted and distended, with the stipe of the cross now impaling it from groin to crown. The old woman dropped the defiled cross. In any case, it had been merely a distraction. Her other hand emerged from her skirt with a mix of preserved leaves, which she blew towards the warrior. Suspended in the air, they swirled thicker and faster, enveloping the man in a disorienting cloud of debris. He ducked downwards, doubled over, but the miniature whirlwind moved with him, cutting off sight and sound. The woman fell back, looking for an escape. Even as she retreated, she saw the blood rise from the ground. A wave of it soaked the leaves and washed them to the ground, and the warrior rose, striding forward. Blood hung in the air in sheets behind him, like great red wings. "Herb witch," he snarled. "Do you think your dirt magic can touch a host lord of the diva?" He waved a hand, and she could not move. He closed the gap between them, swinging the knife. The flat of the blade caressed her cheek as it passed her head. Then it was still and poised in his hand, the point towards her face. The warrior continued. "Our empire stretches from Kalmar to the Siberian wastes. I am the spearhead. Through me the diva shall conquer west and east, onwards without limit. You and your people are ashes before the wind of our coming." He brought the dagger slowly in, pushing nearer. Her throat thickened, but she could not scream. Her world narrowed to the size of the knife, to the size of the point. Still it came closer. She felt the tip resting on the surface of her eye. "You cannot choose but serve," the man said, his voice grown quiet. "Only the manner of your service is within your power. Tell your people they will be slaves or they will be cattle." The knife stopped. She could not blink. The point on her eyeball was worse than pain. Every nerve in her body was focused on the pressure, willing it not to increase, imagining that it had. The Diva Lord leaned in close to her motionless head and whispered, "That girl, the last I killed. She was your granddaughter, yes? I could taste it in her. Think on her before you answer. Think on her sister, on all of your family." Her realization was abrupt. She had one last, desperate hope. She pulled at her memories for scraps of forbidden knowledge that only long years of training with her own grandmother had taught her to resist. Suddenly he released the hold that was on her. She wrenched her head away from the knife, and he smiled and threw it high. The old woman gathered herself, turning back to the warrior. "The Roma do not serve!" She spat at his feet. His swiftness was beautiful and savage. One hand grabbed her arms, the other plucked the dagger from the air. Blood sprayed from her wrists as the barbs tore them open. Her hands hung limp, and pain and shock overtook her. The diva's hand was a vice on her arms. "I will not make this quick for you," he said, and bent to drink from her severed veins. As she stood, dying, the old woman gave a keening wail for her daughter, for her daughter's daughter, for all her kin. Her voice wavered into a thin, wordless tune, discordant as the crows that roosted in the castle towers. She had only sung for a short time before the warrior cut her throat, but it was long enough. When Constantine, Janissary of His Imperial Majesty Mehmet II, climbed with his guards the 1,000 steps to Poenari's citadel, he had not believed the stories they told in Sibyl, but the grisly scene in the courtyard was beyond his ability to explain. Close to 100 bodies, dead for at least a month, but untouched by wolves or carrion birds. Some hung upside down from the walls, their throats slashed open like butchered pigs. Others lay in piles, naked and pallid, their skin ribboned by hundreds of deep cuts, as if to bleed them from every scrap of flesh. Many of the corpses appeared to be gypsies. The rest were like no people known to the Ottoman Empire, wild-haired and tattooed, with devilish-looking weapons, oddly undrawn. But even this was not what had daunted him. Almost every surface of the courtyard was painted with blood. The recent rains had streaked it into illegibility, but it must have been monumental, perhaps a mural, or notation in a language with which Constantine was not familiar. But it was impossible, unthinkable. For what great work would all these people bleed? As he passed another heap of corpses, Constantine spied a lone figure slumped against the far wall. A pool of blood had clearly dried beneath the body, but the wall next to it was the only clean surface in the entire courtyard. Constantine, walking closer, saw a man with olive skin and a fighter's build. The warrior's face was smudged with faded red, with deep scratches down each side from sharpened fingernails. The man's own nails. Constantine could see the blood beneath them. His eyes were open in a fervid stare at that last blank piece of stone. His left arm was covered in wounds, the tip of one finger cut off, the palm of the hand slashed across. The left wrist was almost severed by a single deep cut. It was pressed against the edge of the empty wall in a final faltering smear, and his right hand still gripped the barbed knife. Constantine climbed back down the 1,000 steps, his thoughts troubled. But as he descended, the soft Transylvanian rains returned. The tide of history ebbed, and his memories of the diva were washed away. By the time he reached the valley floor, he had forgotten his purpose there, and he once again felt sanguine. Riding away, he began to sing softly to himself. "All right, if you could please step up towards the object," says the stone-faced researcher. The lone man in the room takes 2 tentative steps towards the box on the pedestal, wary of what is to come. A sharp click sounds through the room, echoing off the cold walls. Open the safe, if you will. Inside is a pile of papers, neatly organized, and a large box of pens. The paper calls to him like nothing before. Without any hesitation, the man pulls the paper from its confines, spreading it on the floor so that he may continue this masterpiece. The righteous ones emerge from beneath the stone, crying out for justice. The visions are overwhelming, taking over all his senses. The man is not aware of the notes he is writing on the page. Their meaning lost, but their divine purpose resonating with each beat. The sun blackens and the moon becomes red as blood, before they fall out completely as the sky peels back like an old scroll and stars fall while pure souls ascend. The notes are coming from his hand much easier now, while the visions continue to dance around him. Old mountains crumble while whole continents sink into the depths of the sea. From their ashes rise new landforms, as perfect and untainted as Eden. The strongest of the faithful retreat to the new caves and call upon the rocks to seal them in. D-1875, stop writing. But he can't, not even if he wanted to. The visions are too overwhelming. Even after the tranquilizer dart has hit him in the neck, he fights as hard and as long as he can to keep writing, to perfect this masterpiece, until he finally collapses from exhaustion. "They're getting harder to stop," mutters a researcher, watching the unconscious D-class be taken from the room. "So what does that tell you?" asks Dr. Fersen, her supervisor. "Something's changed. They haven't added a new sheet in over a year, though 7 tests have been run in that time, and they're fighting the tranquilizers for much longer," she says, looking through her notes. "Then what are they doing? Refining the piece? Adding new notes? Some frilly extra stuff? I don't know. I was never good at music. Bottom line is they haven't added new pages, but they're still working just as hard as they would if they had been adding new pages. So what would you do if you were in my position?" "I'd stop testing. I believe the piece may be close to completion." "What would make you say that?" he asks. I don't know, sir." "Think about it for a while," he says, before leaving the researcher alone in the room. The young researcher logs into the database from her Foundation-issued laptop with a plan. Her fingers fly over the keys while her eyes dart around the screen, looking for where she left off in her research. Most of the videos are uneventful aside from the grotesque test run back in 1973, which ran until the subject passed out from blood loss. This resulted in all testing with SCP-012 being suspended until 3 years ago, when Dr. Fersen's request to resume testing was approved on the grounds of seeing if an object's compulsive effect could be exhausted. Looking back 2 years, the average number of pages added during tests was around 15, with 2 D-class managing to pull together a whopping 45 in an hour-and-a-half long test run barely over a year ago. Then, all of a sudden, it just stopped. No new pages have been added since, but the tests did become more frenzied, with more blood loss noted. "This doesn't make any sense," she mutters while traveling farther back into SCP-012's history at the Foundation. She tries everything she can think of to track what could have possibly changed, but nothing comes to her. She sighs in defeat, looking at her laptop screen one more time. "Having trouble, Emma?" asks her supervisor. "Yeah," she says. "I take it all this mess is your notes on 012? Bingo. Impressive. So what do you know about it?" "Well, these papers graph the average number of pages added over 3 tests, and the ones you're holding are transcripts of the last 4 tests run where new pages were added, and I think I have..." She begins rambling. "We already had all of these done. In the viewing chamber, you said you think the piece is nearing completion. Why?" he asks, while dropping pages in the recycling bin. "I still don't know," she says, looking at the nearly full recycling bin and the piles of paper still littering the room. "So what have you done?" "I've looked at everything. The statistics, the transcripts, everything we've written about it since it came to the Foundation." "Why did you cut off there?" he asks. "Does anything before even matter?" "It does if you want to know about the nature of the object," he says, looking around the room before walking out without saying another word. She sighs and looks back at her laptop, clearly not done with her research yet. The documents leave her more confused than before, and she's ready to give up. "Just one more, then you're done," she says to herself, taking a sip of her coffee. One last document. The journal of K.M. Sandoval, the man who found SCP-012 way back in 1966. The 8th of November, 1966. It is difficult to describe the devastation here. Footnote 1. On the night of the 3rd to the 4th November 1966, heavy rains caused the Arno River to swell greatly past its regular size, resulting in the Great Florence Flood of 1966. The birthplace of the Renaissance, the Athens of the Middle Ages, all in utter ruin from the overflowing banks of the Arno River on the 4th of November. If the walls of water and mud that coursed through the city, fouling all in its path, weren't enough, heating oil from 1,000 underground tanks ruptured under the onslaught and spilled their contents into the deluge. It is this slurry that broke into museums, libraries, and churches like an army of barbarians, destroying countless artifacts, masterpieces, and manuscripts. Power remains cut off for most of the city, and even hospital generators have failed. It is our duty to save the heritage for mankind that rests here. Mud, water, oil, mold. The threats are great, and the treasures remain scattered throughout the city. The National Central Library, on the banks of the Arno, suffered terribly. I cannot imagine how many thousands of medieval works have been destroyed by the calamity. I, for one, will seek whatever can be salvaged from the Basilica of Santa Croce. Not only does it contain many treasures, but underneath lie the tombs of so many of Italy's great men. Who knows what kind of devastation the flood has wrought upon these giants' eternal repose. The 9th of November 1966. They are calling us the Mud Angels. We are trickling in from around the world, trying to save the masterpieces throughout Florence. It is still mostly Italians that are here, but Frenchmen, Germans, British, even a few fellow Americans have arrived, and more arrive each day. We are staying with locals, and despite the stress we must be to our hosts, they house us graciously. Power has yet to be restored. The streetlights are unlit. City officials assure us that the phones will work again in a week. Staying with me in my room are 2 other Americans, Anderson and Spitzer. They arrived together and worked together back in the States. They say that they're going to clear out the National Library, see what texts can be salvaged. They've already offered to help me clear out Santa Croce if and when they have the chance. The streets are so dark. The moon wanes rapidly and the stars are so faint. A great person could die on a night like this, and no one would notice. More popular than Jesus? Could someone really think that? Footnote 2. John Lennon famously claimed the Beatles were more popular than Jesus in March 1966, resulting in protests and boycotts of Beatles music. Also, according to the Paul is dead conspiracy theory, Paul McCartney was killed in a car accident the night of the 9th of November 1966 and replaced with an imposter. Foundation conspiracy researchers have proven this has not occurred. As of the 1st of September 2015, Paul McCartney is still alive. Music will always serve the creator. The 10th of November 1966. The water reached 4.5 meters inside the Basilica of Santa Croce. That's 16 feet. A full story and a half of oily water rushed into the church. The altar was shattered. Michelangelo's sarcophagus was submerged. Donatello's tomb took significant damage. The waters have receded, but mud and debris still cover the floor, and the water loosened and shifted the stones beneath our feet. Even the grand crucifix was defaced by the flood. I helped other workers pull out the crucifix, take it outside to dry out. While in the back, by the altar, I noticed a disc of marble that had been dislodged. It looked like the mud descended into a hole. Tombs are littered throughout old European churches like this, more than anyone ever remembers. I have to see whether there's anything left down there. I keep feeling tempted to go back at night, when no one's looking. But Florence is so dark at night. No electricity, no streetlights, and the mud is so black. The 11th of November 1966. I did it. I could no longer wait. Anderson and Spitzer were complaining about some quarto that was exceptionally fouled by the mud and discussing new methods of drying out and removing mud from texts. It was quite heated, and I stepped outside to clear my head. Walking the abandoned streets, my wanderings took me back to Santa Croce. The night could not be more dark. It was the night of the new moon, and the only source of light was from the stars far away. Even if anyone else had bothered to roam these sodden streets, I would never be seen, enshrouded in night's shadows. Nevertheless, I crept into the basilica, felt for the marble disc, and moved it aside. Beneath, a waterlogged wooden staircase descended into a crypt. It was tight, long forgotten, and choked with mud. I slid down into the slick, inky depths, turned on my flashlight, and looked around. The force of the flood had shattered the soul-weak sandstone sarcophagus inside. Its occupant lay wedged unceremoniously against the wall, his long decayed remains desecrated by the overflowing Arno River. Who this poor fellow was seems to have been lost to time and the flood. But he was apparently a musician of some kind. A violin, smashed and fouled beyond repair, was sunk in the mire, but he clutched 2 sheaves of paper, apparently buried with it. They are covered in the ubiquitous mud, but they may still contain something of historical value. I rescued them from their impartial reburial. The stars must know what I am doing, and know that it is right, for they lit the way back to my room without issue. The 12th of November, 1966. Sometimes the task set before us seems impossible, and yet we endure. Each morning sun chases away the shadows in our minds and hearts, and we toil anew. Having discovered our late composer's works, I knew I had to find a way to clean and restore these papers. I speak to my roommates, and they show me what they are doing in the library. In a spare storeroom on the upper floor of the library, they have laid out tome upon tome of soiled works, all there to dry, slowly. There they let the water evaporate from each book, and then carefully brush away any dirt they can, then return it to the triage to dry further. It is slow, painstaking work. The 2 sets of papers I placed to join the rows. The first is in abysmal condition, and I would never think it possible to read again. However, after hanging the first few pages on a line, I was able to make out one line towards the very bottom. I'm not sure what it means, but the author said that Il Mascherato, the masked one, would pay him once his commission is finished. The second papers aren't paper after all, but vellum, calfskin. Spitzer tells me they'll need special care, since parchment and vellum quickly warp in damp conditions. He takes them into a dry, darkened room and stacks them between wood panels. Hopefully they will be in condition to be viewed tomorrow. The mud covered the vellum so completely that I could barely make out a title. The 13th of November, 1966. Sul Golgotha, Italian, on Mount Golgotha. Although I cannot be certain, it looked like it was sheets of music, on vellum. A hymn to our Lord as he suffered on the cross. That crucifix is fouled, paint flaking off from the caustic action of mute, thoughtless nature. It will be returned to its rightful place of worship, but it will never be whole again. I am spending the day resting. Santa Croce is being cleaned, but now that the artifacts have been removed, it is the purview of the shovelers. We, the mud angels, work elsewhere. This mud is everywhere, and we can't even wash it off, really. I'm going to check in the drying room. The symphony, something feels incomplete. It's not ready yet. Still too moist. Golgotha. Our Lord was not the only one crucified that day. 2 thieves were executed with him. Dismas, the penitent one, felt honor in dying with his God. Gestas, the impenitent one, demanded the Lord free them from their just punishment. Both died on their crosses. What happened to their souls, it is not for the mortal likes of me to know. It must be music. Life and death codified in sound where words cannot. Close to sundown, dusk has become my most active time. Everyone else is using the last bit of light the sun provides, and I start using the light of the wandering stars in the sky. They know what I've discovered. They proclaim the blossoming of orchestras. I'm going to check in the drying room. The 14th of November, 1966. 7 trumpets, 12 apostles, 7/12 meter. That is the core of the awakening. 1 creature, 7 heads, 10 horns. That is 18. Thrice 6. There was a fire last night in Spitzer's vellum room. He used some of his cleaning solution, tried to make a torch, said he had to finish it. The star's light does not penetrate into Spitzer's glorified closet. The electricity is still not back. He could not see that page anymore by night. He promised me that on Mount Golgotha is unharmed. He knows the value of that piece. He knows how important it is to complete. He says he knows just how. I do not think he is up to the task. I told him I should go there with him, we should finish it together. He stopped, looked over to Anderson, and refused. Muttered something about containment, all for the best. We still do not have adequate water. The supplies that are brought in are for drinking, not bathing, and so I still feel the stain of all the foul earth upon me. All this black mud. Black stains are not appropriate for the hymns to our Lord. I must prepare. If I cannot commit it to vellum, I will commit the score to my mind. I can complete this. I will be ready. Anderson doesn't trust Spitzer. He's leaving to check on him now. I don't trust Anderson. The 15th of November, 1966. Panic, chaos, opportunity. Anderson paces back and forth. He keeps speaking into his recorder, keeping the microphone close while the box sits and whirs. mentions how Spitzer is descending into madness. He has locked the door to the vellum drying room, the sacristy to our Lord. He keeps talking about how Spitzer must have been heavily exposed to the quarto. I correct him. There is no quarto. A vellum quarto, whoever heard of such a thing? Spitzer is handcuffed to the bed. A huge bloody gauze bandage is wrapped around his left arm. Anderson gives him pills to swallow, but Spitzer expectorates them when given half the chance. When he's not flailing against his bonds, he hums to himself and gesticulates into the air. He has seen the fullness of the page. He hears the blessed symphony. He knows the stars call to him. Oh, the very thought that he sees the beyond, hears the clashing symphony. He knows what music we all must bow before in service to him. Does he hold the insight into the hymn of hymns? Anderson just rushed outside, frightful, shouting demands to know when the phones will return. His keys. Anderson fears Spitzer's enlightenment so much he has not seen it rise in me. I'm taking them, bringing Spitzer with me. And again Spitzer ejected me from his vellum room. How does he know that much karate? Judo? Kung Fu? Whatever it's called, he knows enough of it to block me and knock me back while bleeding from a gash in his arm. No matter. I am still too unclean for my expeditions. Can they not see our Lord is dismembered, tossed to the four corners of this earth? Only two are left, and they are thieves. Psul Golgotha, Sel Golgotha, Sel Golgotha, Sel Galagota, Stengalagota, Stengalagota, Stengalagada, said Alagada. The 16th of November 1966. Spitzer is dead, he could not finish it. Anderson records the event in the next room. He paces like a caged beast, speaking at a fevered pitch. He keeps popping his pills, rambles about mimetic hazards and amnesiacs. This is not 701. The hazard is visual, spouting numbers and word salad. How he descended to madness this quickly, I dare not fathom. But no matter. Even those stars that have lit my path these last few nights, my guides through the shadows, they fall with a reddish flare before the might of our Lord. Footnote 3. The Great Leonid. Shower of 1966 occurred the night of November 16th. However, the bulk of the meteor shower fell over the Americas, and not over Europe. The origin of the meteor shower over Florence is not confirmed. They turned the water back on. I can finally clean myself of this black filth that cakes me. No more mud, no more ink. Now, I am free to complete this sacred task with the purity of my being. Our Lord bled for us. Take, drink. It is only fitting that we give ourselves, our body, our blood to Him for the sake of symphony. I now finish what I have uncovered. I am unworthy. I cannot finish it. Hello, young lady. What brings you here? Emma narrowed her eyes slightly at the man before her. The old man had to be in his 80s. He sat at a weathered metal desk with a dusty, barely touched old desktop. It still used a CRT screen even. Really now, young lady? I have every right to be here, just like you. You're lucky you're so ancient. You probably don't know better. Ah, well, I'd better make a good impression anyway. She smiled and responded, I'm junior researcher Emma Stark. And you are? Anderson. Roger Anderson. Welcome to the salt mines. Long-Term Archives was, in fact, a former salt mine. The bored-out crystalline walls served to maintain clean air with low humidity, perfect for document storage. The irregular texture of the walls made for a soothing counterbalance to the antiseptic straightness of the walls and the rest of the facility. Thanks. I'm looking for a file that didn't make it into the 2003 database upgrade. I'm pretty sure it's still just in paper. Yes, here's where it'll be. Do you have a file number? A designation. It should be SCP-1969-EX. Roger narrowed his eyes. A wry grin twisted across his furrowed mouth. Interesting choice. Business or pleasure? Emma blinked and looked at Roger with a start. What? Business? You get requests for otherwise down here? Roger leered slightly. On occasion. We're strictly business down here. But the story of Paul's death always piques interest. Yes, but McCartney didn't die. He's still alive. But back then it didn't seem so cut and dried as all that. But yes, he's conclusively alive, and that's why the SCP is explained. You're right, it never got into the database. When it was concluded that nothing happened, they just stamped and closed the file, and no one bothered to upload it to take up space pretending it was an anomaly. He didn't even look at his computer or files. Aisle 22, box 4, 31, 4 rows to the right. Show your credentials at the door. And we've got cameras down there, so don't go snooping in other boxes. And don't forget your latex gloves." Emma waved her badge in front of the door panel, a green light flickered, and Roger pressed a button under his desk. The door opened. Emma entered and oriented herself. The encrusted white ceiling strung with fluorescent lights gave an oddly inadequate glow to the metal frame shelves and cardboard boxes stacked in endless rows in the cavern. The air was pure, mineral, dry. She carefully followed his instructions, walked into the aisle, and pulled the heavy box from its shelf. She placed it on the floor and opened it. Inside, there was a full set of vinyl records from the Beatles in their original sleeves, multiples. The sleeves were marked up with a series of lines, notes, and questions about the meaning of each element of the artwork. Earlier albums, before 1968, showed only a few notes or marks and were signed by the Cognito-Hazard Monitoring Division. But the albums were repeated chronologically, and each month more and more lines were made. More connections were noted. Sections of the album covers were highlighted, then covered over with stickers labeled, "Warning, Memetic Hazard." The frenzy of notes, connections, and redactions over the same identical covers continued until February 1970, when everything just stopped. Tucked toward the back of the box, she found the main file documentation for SCP-1969-EX. Item number, SCP-1969-EX. Object class, explained. Update March 14, 70. SCP-1969 is no longer considered anomalous and no longer requires containment. All efforts to contain SCP-1969 are to cease, and SCP-1969 is now considered explained. Description: SCP-1969 is a 28-year-old Scottish-Canadian by the name of William Campbell. Through an undetermined regimen of training and meditation, it has managed to take on a perfect resemblance of POI 1841-12, also known as Paul McCartney, performer in the Beatles. SCP-1969 still maintains minor differences from POI 1841-12, namely a small surgical scar on his upper lip and right-handedness, while POI 1841-12 is left-handed. SCP-1969 completed his anomalous transformation at the Beatles' request to replace POI 1841-12 after his death the morning of the 9th of November, 1966. The remaining members of the band and their manager, acting to keep news of the death from spreading, bribed the police involved with POI 1841-12's fatal automobile accident and hired SCP-1969. Seafield Incident 1841 and MTF Beta 6 reporting for a witness report of the accident. Surveillance personnel noted that despite the fatal accident, POI 1841-12 was seen as continuing to perform in concert and attend recording sessions at Abbey Road Studios. The nature of the anomaly was not determined until SCP-1969 came to the Foundation's attention through the Cognito-Hazard Monitoring Division. The Beatles had already come under higher scrutiny with the simultaneous worldwide release on the 1st of June 1967 of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which, while only scoring 3 on the Conte-Rita scale, non-anomalous memetic, itself, had a number of symbols and subliminal hints, questioning POI 1841-12's continued life. The CMD further discovered a hidden phone number on the Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack album cover, released the 27th of November, 1967. The transcript of the phone call follows. Participants, Field Agent Roger Anderson and POI 1969A, identified by voice to be a woman in her late 20s with a West London accent. Begin log. Size for 1.5 seconds.
Hello?
Hello? To whom am I speaking?
Is this about Paul?
Have you received a lot of phone calls, ma'am?
Have I received a lot of phone calls? Listen, I've had to deal with every single pampered stoned kid in every university in this country, along with every newsboy hopeful for some scoop, and even ornery policemen from various precincts casually wondering if I know anything about Paul. Is he dead? How did it happen? I swear the morbid fascination you Yanks have for the demise of a man who's walking around this very minute would be farcical if it weren't so grotesque. I'll say the same thing to you as I've said to everyone else. No, he's not dead. And if he were, I should know nothing about it. Now please, do me the kind favor of leaving me alone.
Sorry to bother you, ma'am. Have a good day.
No. Wait. You don't sound in university. I'm sorry. Perhaps I'm being rash. Are you a journalist? Are you with the government?
No, ma'am.
And you can keep a secret, can you?
My business is in keeping secrets.
Oh God, I can't just hold it in any longer.
Hold what in?
I killed him.
You killed Paul McCartney?
I didn't mean to. Oh God, I barely remember it all. I was so drunk and high at the time. Everything feels so unreal. But I was there. I watched him die. I was out walking, 5 in the morning, trying to get back home after clubbing too hard. I could barely keep straight. I must have stepped into traffic a half dozen times. Then this cute man drives up beside me, offers me a lift. I was in no condition to refuse, and I joined him. I told him where I lived. We started talking. I asked him what he's doing driving around at this hour, and he talks about how he had a row with his bandmates during a recording session. And that's when I realized it. He was Paul. The Paul. Paul had seen me and picked me up and was taking me home. Such a gentleman. Sobs.
Lucky.
Don't you dare say that. When I realized I was in the car with Paul, the Beatles are like gods to me. And here, Paul, dear lovely Paul, had taken notice of me, picked me up, was my white knight. I lost control. I started screaming and flailing about in excitement. In my altered state, I grabbed for him, tried to hug him, kiss him, and then we veered off the road and collided with a lamppost and flipped. The police were right there and had pulled me from the wreckage. They set about to freeing Paul when the car exploded. He would still be alive if it weren't for me.
I'm sorry. Did the police speak to you further?
I told them my name, Rita, and they dropped me off at home and gave me some pills to swallow to sober up. Strangest thing? Their uniforms didn't look like any police I knew. There was this whole 3-arrow thing, and they kept talking about amnesiacs.
But you still remember everything? The pills didn't make you feel hazy? Did they have a coppery aftertaste?
Ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. I'm not sure what all I was on that night.
That's different.
That's what I thought. But I daren't say anything to anyone before. I just pretty much hid until I received a phone call about a month later. It was John, and they asked me to come down to Abbey Road.
What about?
I wasn't sure, but when John calls, you answer. I feared the worst. I killed Paul after all. I would have let them do anything to me. I deserved it. But when I got there, he, George, and Ringo greeted me with hugs. They told me not to worry. All is forgiven. Everything was going to be all right. But how could it? I killed Paul. My idol. The beloved of millions. He was gone. But that's when they introduced me to William.
William?
William Campbell. A Canadian bloke. Sandy brown, wavy hair, wide-set gray eyes. John told me he was going to be the new Paul. They held a look-alike contest and he won. I couldn't believe it. This man was nothing like Paul. Then John said they all had a song for me. I told them no, what I did was horrible. They should kill me where I stood. But no, they insisted. And William started singing this song to me. It's on Sgt. Pepper. Lovely Rita. I still can't believe they wrote it. But the strangest thing was that as William sang, his voice changed. His skin tone, eyes, face, body, even his hair color, everything shifted. By the end of the song, he wasn't William anymore.
Shifted? How? Not William?
He was Paul. I could have sworn it was Paul. All over again. The man whose music I loved, the man who rescued me, gave his life for me that night. He stood before me anew.
How?
William, said that he completed the transformation through meditation. John said they had tried a few other experiments, tried a cardboard cutout for a while, but they really needed a living, flesh and blood Paul to continue things. And so they found William.
A cardboard cutout?
It was apparently a really good cardboard cutout, but now they have William.
All right.
They swore me to secrecy until later, when they could break the news to the fans. They feared mass suicides. Couldn't let that happen. Needed something quieter. And, oh God, I've been living with this massive burden of guilt ever since. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And
It's been an honor.
But, for all the drama, I suppose it had to happen somehow. I don't know. It's written, or it's karma, or whatever. After all, John did say they were bigger than Jesus.
More popular than Jesus, yes.
Right. And for all their music still, only 3 died on the mount that day.
Wait, what? Phone disconnects. End log. The phone call was traced to a management office on an abandoned feedlot outside Laramie, Wyoming. No sign of POI 1969-1 or a working telephone was found. The present instance of POI 1841-12, believed to be Mr. Campbell, was given the designation SCP-1969. MTF Beta-6 took custody of SCP-1969 and is to be kept for observation. Addendum, November 9th, 69. Despite Foundation custody of SCP-1969, the Beatles continue to release music. MTF Beta-6 note the continued presence of POI 1841-12 at recording sessions. Furthermore, SCP-1969 researchers note that the object does not resemble POI 1841-12. Enhanced testing and interviews confirm that Mr. Campbell is not anomalous. He is to be given amnesiacs and released. MTF Beta-6 increases surveillance of POI 1841-12 and confirms that he is still alive. The Cognitohazard Monitoring Division reports that Beatles album covers carry an increasingly virulent mimetic hazard. Upon review, the CMD hereby revises the Kant Derrida score to 7. Viewing the album covers and discussion with other curious individuals leads to the conclusion that POI 1841-12 was killed on the 9th of November, 1966. While it can be demonstrated that POI 1841-12 continues to live. Given the widespread worldwide distribution of Beatles album covers, SCP-1969 is expanded to include this mimetic hazard, and its object class is redesignated Cutter. SCP-1969 is an active widespread mimetic hazard of pandemic proportions. MTF Gamma-5, red herrings, formed to dispense the truth regarding the living status of POI 1841-12 worldwide. Field agents are embedded on college campuses to attend meetings and informal discussions regarding the alleged death of POI 1841-12 and disseminate the truth and present skepticism. Addendum, March 14th, 70. MTF Gamma-5 reports high levels of success in combating SCP-1969. A photo spread in Life magazine showing the continued life of POI 1841-12 has demonstrated complete inoculation to the mimetic hazard. The ease of removal of the hazard indicates that it is non-anomalous in nature and can be attributed to mass hysteria. SCP-1969 is considered explained. Emma looked up from her reading. Something wasn't right. She pulled out the documentation, closed the box, placed it back on the shelf, and jogged back out to the reception room. She tossed the papers on Roger's desk. "You're Roger Anderson. You're supposed to shelve the file when you're done with it." Emma slammed a hand down on the papers. "You're Roger Anderson, and I'm not done with this file." Roger shook his head and allowed himself a sheepish smirk. "I am. I was in Coghaz at the time. I worked on 1969. Hey, I forgot to ask in the excitement of you looking up my work. For the record, which object are you assigned to? How did you start looking for 1969? Emma stared at Roger a moment. Is he trying to change the subject? No, more about 1969 I can still ask. I'm on SCP-012. I was, oh, for the love of 12. It's always 12. Roger buried his face in his hands. 12 is the reason I transferred to Coghaz in the first place. Lost a partner and a good friend to 12. Emma peered into Roger's craggy face. You're Anderson? Anderson and Spitzer Anderson? Roger nodded. Leon Spitzer. Damn fine partner, drinking buddy, confidant. All stripped away into a paranoid mess by a damn piece of sheet music. I was popping amnesiacs like Tic Tacs when I realized what was going on. I never actually saw the vellum with the mud off, but one tip, miss, don't abuse amnesiacs. Ever. Resolved to be regaled with rambling old man tales, she corrected. Amnestics, amnesiacs, whatever. I know they reformulated them a few years back and reminded everyone that they're really called amnestics, but we were all used to calling them amnesiacs, even if it wasn't right. But I panicked when I realized what was happening to Leon. We were in Florence to pick up a copy of 701, which is safe to look at and read, so we weren't expecting something as insidious as 12. When I realized that 12 had changed Leon, I started recording everything I knew and made myself an amnesiac cocktail. I lost my best friend and half of my childhood that day. Do you know how horrible it feels to go visit your family for Christmas and realize you can't remember your mother's name? Terrible. When I got back, I put in for transfer to Coghaz. I wasn't going to let another 12 slip past me again. I also got medical orders never to take amnesiacs again. Emma wondered, but when you retire, Roger shut her down with a wave of his hand. I ain't retiring. Had to give up that possibility just to avoid the retirement party drink. That's why I'm down here in archives now. I'm too run down for anything actually anomalous, so I get to sit down here in the salt and reminisce most days. It's good for my lungs. Slow pace, low risk. Best retirement I could ask for. Silence passed between them. Roger sat contently, while Emma leaned against the desk, half sitting on it. She squirmed and looked around, noticing the papers under her hand. Now, about Paul. You still haven't answered why you wanted to look up 1969. Don't think I've forgotten. I'm old but not senile, Miss Stark, Roger interrupted with a wink. Emma rolled her eyes and sighed. Okay, so I was looking over KM Sandoval's journal for clues about what O12 was doing. I didn't see anything, but there was this note about how he alluded to Paul's death on the night it was supposed to happen. So I looked for any records we might have had on Paul's death and learned about SCP-1969-EX. So here I am. Roger's eyes sharpened in response. Sandoval talked about McCartney's death, and he was supposed to have died while we were in Florence? Emma pulled out her tablet and presented it to him. I took a picture. See the note in the margin regarding McCartney? Roger pored over the tablet, pulled his desk lamp close over it, cursed the clashing lights, pushed it away, and read carefully, mumbling to himself. Looks like Wortham's writing. He knew more about 1969 than any of us. If anyone knew the particulars of McCartney's death, it was him. But if this really is his journal, you're right. Sandoval was talking about when McCartney died. Maybe that's why Rita mentioned Golgotha. But according to this, he hadn't even found 12 yet. How could he have known that Paul died that night, 1,000 miles away? Emma looked askance at Roger. Paul didn't die that night. Roger gave Emma a blank stare. No, Paul didn't die that night. Emma leaped back into her questions. But that's the problem with this documentation. If Paul never died, who was William Campbell? Why did you pick him up? What was that phone call with Rita all about? None of this makes sense. Roger smiled and spread his hands placatingly. Wortham explained it to me. Mass hysteria interference from another SCP? SCP-1841? Sounds right to me. Strange, it was apparently neutralized back in the 19th century, though. I remember reading it over then. That doesn't make sense. I just listened to Wortham and went ahead with it. You don't contradict the site director. Emma tapped a few figures into her tablet. No, it's not SCP-1841. That's a travel guide or something. Can't be. It had to do with mass hysteria carried by Franz Liszt, if I remember correctly. Died with him. Wait, 1969 got reused, right? How about... Aha, here it is. SCP-1841-EX. Your 1841's explained and in the database. Explained? When did that happen? Read it to me. Emma looked at Roger in disbelief from his request, but shook her head and went through the record with him, including the addenda. Stopping for a moment afterwards, she mused, "This doesn't help this case a bit." Roger scowled. So, Wortham pulled a full Raisa on the article. What do you mean? Well, you know how stuff is redacted or expunged, or behind an access code wall when we're not supposed to know about something, right? Well, that little redacted sign lets us know that something is in fact there. We're just not supposed to see it. But sometimes, someone pulls strings and makes sure we aren't allowed to know that there's hidden information. What do those addenda say? It tells us that they completely changed the article, made it look complete. That way, we walk away thinking that it's neutralized last century when it's still active. Emma sighed. I'm more concerned that if 1841 is explained, then 1969 suddenly can't be mass hysteria. Suddenly it's not explained. Roger hardened his jaw and swallowed. So Paul really did die. Emma jumped up and paced. No, we know he didn't die. The only way this makes sense is if we know he died, then know he didn't die. Which is it? Roger laughed. Maybe both. What? Listen, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, Paul never died. Everyone went a little crazy one fall, saw stuff that wasn't there, and then we all wised up. But the Beta 6 involvement, Campbell, the Rita call, none of that would have gone down that way if we didn't have conclusive knowledge that Paul did die on November 9th, 1966. So, maybe he was dead. And now he isn't. Stranger things have happened, you know. Emma stopped pacing and leaned forward against the desk. A knot started forming in her stomach. What are we talking about? Resurrection? They were bigger than Jesus, right? More popular than Jesus, Roger corrected. Realization passed over his face. Oh, Rita, Listen, have you got the 12 documentation? Show me the full record. I'm still cleared for it. No amnesiacs, remember? Emma passed her tablet to Roger. He squinted to read the screen, but got through the short documentation quickly. Where's the rest of it? That's it. No, this is all kinds of inaccurate. Really? Emma took the tablet back and looked it over again. I know. I've been wanting to update it with some of the most recent results, but you're still suspending it from the ceiling in its own room so people can't look at it, right? Yes. The way this reads, it's not Euclid, it's safe. You stick it in a locker and forget about it. You don't go through all the trouble of its own room and leave it where someone has any chance to see it at some weird angle. The knot tightened further in her stomach. She felt her insides grow cold. Roger continued. And how many pages is the music now? We had 5 when I stopped working with it. How many now? 117. 117 all in blood? Even when ink is provided? Emma didn't like where this was going. Getting words out was getting harder. Yes. And do all the pages carry the cog has? Emma blushed and shrunk. No, just 10 of them. Don't you think this is all important documentation? Yes, sir. And what's this about a recent storm? Do the 1966 Florence floods seem recent to you? Or just a storm? Emma was at the verge of tears. No. Miss Stark, this documentation is inaccurate and misleading. In a small voice she responded, I'll fix it. I want to fix it. Roger stopped, realizing what he was doing. He swallowed and took a deep breath. Damn you, 12. He softened his tone. No, it's not your fault. What I'm saying is that 12 is receiving the full Raisa, like 18 to 41 inches. Emma's encroaching dread dissolved. What? Are you sure? Roger fixed Emma with a steely gaze. Yes. Read the journal again. Sandoval was affected and had to find 12 before he knew about it. You know you can't just stick it in a locker. You know it's Euclid. Emma, confused, replied, Couldn't we put it in a locker? For a bit, but people know about it. And when they know about it, they want to do more with it. They'd pull it back out. You were ready to change things to say more about it. Heck, I was almost shouting at you just now. How many people have read that? How many have loved it? Does it deserve that love? Does that document deserve so much attention? And how many want nothing more than to rewrite it? They know how to fix it. They know how to complete it. And yet, they cannot. Emma's eyes widened. Oh my God, is that why we keep testing with it? Is that why we can't put it away? We're all affected by it? We want to display it? Roger nodded. I bet so. It's not a strong effect. It can be resisted, but it's alluring. It's sexy. Even when presented with some crappy, inaccurate documentation, something about it sings in your soul. You just know how powerful it is, how compelling. You want to work with it. That's why it's Euclid. And someone doesn't want anyone to know this. Emma started wondering. She's been working with this item for nearly a year now. Who is hiding the truth from her? From the Foundation? Who is trying to make sure no one knows anything more about it? Why? What is this scrap of music capable of? Wortham? Wortham's dead. No, it's got to be someone else. Then who? No clue. But you need a chance to meet with some other old-timers. Someone's got to know something. And 12 being 12, someone's just dying to spill his guts about it. I got an invite to Dr. Califano's retirement party next week. Come with me. We'll get some answers. Emma straightened. Okay, yes, I gotta get back to work. But what about 1969 and all that? It's a crapshoot, but I'm betting on 12. The concert hall was silent, expectant. Emma looked out, dazzled by the stage lights. If there was an audience out there, it was shrouded in the blackness beyond. Blackness like the mouth of a deep pit, like an open throat ready to... The soft rustle of her silk dress brought Emma back. She felt herself take a performer's stance. Feet shoulder width, knees slightly bent, shoulders relaxed. There was no music stand in front of her, no score. She didn't need it. In front of the darkened hall, Emma was ready. She stole a glance to her left. From here, the conductor's face was a blur in her peripheral vision, but she could make out his black tailsuit and the sharp tip of his baton. It motioned in rapid circles, and Emma could feel the unseen orchestra beyond as it stretched itself and then coiled, ready to spring. The baton seemed to sense it too, snapping to a quivering pause like a hare at full alert, sensing an unseen threat. The moment stretched endlessly, the bright stage, the enveloping dark, all on a razor's edge. Emma felt a prickling at the nape of her neck, and suddenly they were off, the batons leaping upbeat and the orchestra giving chase in a sharp scherzo. In her focus, the music seemed to flow around Emma without reaching her, leaving only the sounds of its creation. The blowing of air into woodwinds, the scrape of bowing, the shuffling of fingers on valves and keys and strings. A tide of shadowy noises swept past without the sounds it formed. Emma could feel the music, its drive, its urgency, its sinuous scuttling, but she could not hear it. Her cue was coming. The intensity of the orchestra was rising in a frenzied rush. From the corner of her eye, Emma saw the conductor half turn and breathe deeply. The baton flashed down at her like a lightning strike, and Emma opened her mouth to sing. No sound came out. Emma's hand sprang reflexively to her throat, and her eyes widened. The skeletal sounds of the orchestra, the music she could not hear, pressed onward heedlessly. Emma could see the baton crash down towards her again and again, and felt the weight of the cavernous darkness beyond the stage pressing upon her. Her fingers clutched her voice box, as if to squeeze out her trapped voice. Nothing. Panicked, Emma clawed at her throat, her nails gouging the soft flesh around her larynx. Her breathing was ragged, and she gagged as she gripped harder, pulling with slick fingers. Blood ran down her neck both inside and out, the taste of it acrid at the back of her mouth. The spotlights blazed, the orchestra plunged onwards. The baton fell at her a final time, and Emma clenched her hand and ripped it away from her throat, feeling the cartilage tear and seeing pink ribbons trail wetly behind. As the silent maelstrom behind her reached a climax, she held her bloodied, mangled larynx aloft, dripping flesh and gore. It pulsed in her hand, and Emma heard it scream. She woke to the sound of a soft, high-pitched buzzing and the sight of a middle-aged man leaning down with a concerned expression. "Don't try to get up. Waking you with tone K can leave you a little unsteady. Can you tell me your name?" The man flicked a switch on a device he was holding, and the buzzing stopped. The device, which looked like a cross between a pistol and a miniature bullhorn, slid back into its holster on the man's belt, and Emma noticed his uniform. A mobile task force officer. Junior researcher Emma Stark. "Who are you?" "Commander Samuel Richards, ma'am. Task Force ETA 11. "We have an ETA 11? Are you related to Sino Ev?" Emma trailed off as she saw the man's jaw stiffen, gray stubble sharp against his skin. She looked away and noticed the dimly lit room beyond for the first time. The remnants of the retirement party were obscured by site security officers and a few other MTF agents helping dazed-looking researchers to their feet. "What happened?" "You tell us," a woman's voice answered, and Emma turned to see another MTF agent, a slim Asian woman with thick streaks of gray hair at her temples. 30 researchers fall asleep simultaneously. Was this the most boring party ever? Emma shook her head slowly. "I'm sorry, I don't remember. I was here with Roger and then I had an awful nightmare." "Most likely someone spiked the punch," said Commander Richards. "It's lucky you weren't all lying here for hours. We have Hennessy to thank for that." He indicated another MTF agent across the room, a stocky older man who waved back in acknowledgement. Emma felt bewildered. Hennessy looked in his late 60s, far too old to be in a task force. But she managed a weak "thank you." "He can't hear you." Commander Richards was curt. "He's been deaf for 30 years. But he's a good lip reader," added the woman, gently helping Emma to her feet. "And deafness can be an advantage in this job." "I'm not sure I understand. What job?" "Mobile Task Force ETA 11. Specialists in auditory, sonic, and musical anomalies." Commander Richards sounded proud, Emma thought, but also a little defensive. "Musical? Because my nightmare— No, wait, can I ask you about—" Emma gasped, as she was cut off by a sudden shout from across the room. One of the site security officers was spinning around like he'd been stung. "What the hell? Who did that?" Richards took 2 strides forward. "Officer, remain calm. What did you see?" "Sir, I didn't see anything, but I ran into something, I swear it." "No one move. Are you sure, officer?" The security officer nodded, eyes wide. "There's something in here with us, sir." The room fell silent. Emma turned her head frantically, searching in the half-light for a threat. There was nothing. Her breathing quickened, and she felt the Asian woman's hand on her shoulder. Another MTF agent, a wiry, buzz-cut woman in her 40s, chimed in. "Sir, I think he's right. I felt something earlier, but wasn't sure." "Thank you, Agent D." Richards looked sharply back at Emma. "You said nightmares? Are you still afraid?" Emma could hardly speak. Suddenly, Richards' eyes focused in the corner behind her, and he pulled the device from his belt and aimed it past her shoulder, pulling the trigger. The sound was like being inside a bell. Emma felt her head vibrating with the shock of the noise, and then all she could hear was the high-pitched whine of silence. She staggered and turned away, and in the darkened corner behind her, she saw it. It was splayed on all fours like a lizard, skinny limbs almost blue-white. Its head was upturned in challenge, but where its face should be was just a blank sheet of skin. The creature swayed sinuously, as if looking for an escape. Emma half heard shouts from behind her. Site security officers rushed past her with tasers lit, and Emma felt the Asian woman pull her back. The ringing in her ears started to clear as she looked up at Commander Richards, who was barking instructions to the room. SCP-932. Invisible until the sound waves hit them. Hennessy. D, you know the drill. Set your resonators to 510 Hz, around 100 dBs. Switch visual to sonar. If you spot anything less than 5 feet tall, light it up. Take the officers. They can bag them for recontainment. Richards looked down at the Asian agent with Emma. Zhao, take her back to quarters. She's too scared to stay here. Those things feed on fear. Right. You three, with me. As the commander strode away, Agent Zhao smiled down at Emma. It's going to be fine, honey. Here, put these in. I always keep a spare pair. Emma looked at the earplugs in her hand, green LEDs winking on one end. She pressed them into her ears and looked quizzically at Zhao. Her hearing didn't feel muffled. The agent had pulled on her goggles and was scanning the room, sound gun raised. Come on, she said. Let's get out of here. The corridors felt interminable as Agent Zhao stepped slowly ahead of her, scanning each intersection carefully and waving the security officers onwards. Emma couldn't bear any more silence. I'm sorry if I'm an imposition, she ventured. Not at all, said Zhao without turning. Don't let the commander give you the wrong impression. He's just a little highly strung, and you weren't to know how he feels about ETA 10. See no evil? I just thought, I know, honey, but it's been a long time since we were in that league. Zhao held up a hand, checked a room to the side, then continued. They get all the press, the manpower, the budget, but what can you do? Memetics gets custody of most of the musical memes, and auditory skips just don't get as much attention. The commander knows it. ETA 11 is slowly fading out. She sighed softly. But what about tonight? Without you, they would never catch those things. Agent Zhao laughed, a light trilling. That's so sweet, dear, but this is our first action in more than 18 months. If Hennessy hadn't been at your party, it probably wouldn't have been us at all. She stopped in the doorway of a wide hall. Wait, can you see that? What? The room ahead was a blank gray. Oh, well, here goes. Zhao fired the resonator, swore to herself, and fired again. Emma had braced for the noise, but this time the tone was no more than a loud hum. She had no trouble hearing Zhao's voice over the repeated notes blasting into the hall. Earplugs working? They should be bringing everything down to, damn it, slippery little, to around 60 decibels without reducing. Aha, gotcha. 2 more of the pale, faceless children were revealed in the room ahead. The security officers leapt forward, grabbing the entities and pulling out flex cuffs. Agent Zhao nodded to them and led Emma down 2 further corridors, finally arriving in a bright dormitory. The common room was the typical MTF layout. Couches, monitors, a basic kitchenette. Although the speaker setup in the corner looked rather elaborate. Emma could see through half-open doors to a room full of bunks, and another with racks of equipment. Her first impression was interrupted by a grinning face that popped out from behind one of the computer screens. Hey, we have a visitor. I'm Mike Carter. He was young, younger than Emma, early 20s maybe. Hi, I'm Emma Stark. Nice to meet you, Emma. Welcome to the lair of the savage beasts. Mike, you know the commander doesn't like that nickname. Zhao slumped on a couch, loosening her boots, and motioned Emma to an armchair. Well, it's the only one we have. Other than old farts, said Zhao. Mike's the only recruit we've had in 25 years. God knows why he joined. Because we get the best tunes around here, that's why. Mike laughed and fixed Emma with an enthusiastic stare. Hey, what music are you into? Rush? Grateful Dead? I've heard of them, Emma ventured. Newer, of course. Radiohead? Tupac? I have some Tupac verses I bet you've never heard. Mike, stop trying to get everyone to listen. Agent Zhao was cut off by Hennessy, who stumbled into the room, out of breath. He smiled at his squad mates, and again when he saw Emma. Thank you very much for rescuing me, Emma signed to him. Hennessy's smile grew broader. You're very welcome. Agent Zhao shot Emma a look. You know ASL? My younger brother had otitis, so I had to learn. You don't want to join us, do you? Turning back to Hennessy, Zhao asked, "How many did you catch?" Hennessy held up 2 fingers, then reached into his pocket, producing a CD and handing it to Mike with a flourish. "I found this at the party. Could be relevant." "You found it where?" Mike looked confused. "You have to go slower for me, H." "See," said Zhao, ignoring Mike's mock scowl. "You'd be more used to us than him, and we need someone new to join before we all die off." She looked at Hennessy and signed, "Sorry." "Have to go sometime," he signed back cheerfully, before walking into the equipment room. "But what about the other agent?" said Emma. "Agent D, she's not that old." Emma watched Mike and Zhao exchange meaningful glances. Agent Zhao began carefully. "Agent D isn't really Sandra's name. Well, neither is Sandra. It's more of a nickname, I guess." Mike jumped in. "You see, D's not her name. It's her personnel class." Emma was shocked. "You have a D class on an MTF? I told you we were short-handed," said Zhao. "And we've known Sandy for years. She's been with us since she was Mike's age. We trust her. Not to mention she still holds the record for most 092 instances tested without fatality," added Mike. Emma's mind was whirring with questions, but just as she was about to ask another, Mike interrupted. "Speak of the devil!" Agent D slouched through the doorway, followed closely by Commander Richards. He gave a taut smile to his motley MTF. "Good work, agents. Site security has confirmed recovery of all of the 932 instances. I'll be submitting my incident report tomorrow, so no need to send me your sections before then. Don't forget to submit any evidence from the scene for filing." Richards tilted his hawkish face towards Emma. "And it looks like we can let you get back to your evening, ma'am. I'm sure Roger Anderson is keen to know that you're safe." "Actually, Commander, do you mind if I ask a question? It's just, I never knew that we had I've never had the chance to meet a team specializing in musical anomalies." Commander Richards waited impassively. Emma stood up, looking around to the gathered agents. "So, for my first research project, I have been assigned to SCP-012, and there are some things about it that don't make any sense." "You're asking the wrong people. 12 looks like music, yes, but it's a cogni, a visual hazard, not an auditory one. But it could be auditory if someone performed it. They tried that, and it was a cacophonous mess, so they gave up. In fact, probably the only person alive who has heard it can't hear anything anymore." Richards nodded to Hennessy, who was leaning in the doorway to the equipment room. He smiled ironically and signed, "I sometimes wish I had gone deaf before I had to supervise that test." Emma could feel her frustration building. "But that was an unfinished section. It might sound very different when it is finished, and it is very close. In fact, I think it might want to be finished." Agent Zhao had started to ask her a question when Mike interrupted with a yell. "Holy crap, guys, look at this." His startled face was lit by the computer screen. "That CD you found at the party, H, that has some serious memetics on it. Agent Carter, you know that you're not permitted to review anomalous materials here without authorization." "Sorry, sir, but this was just too weird to wait." Agents Zhao and Hennessy crowded behind him as Mike pointed to the screen. "You see this? I've split out a single line from the track, which seems normal enough." Mike clicked the mouse, and the room filled with the sound of a stringed instrument being plucked in a ponderous, chromatic melody. "Sounds old," said Agent D. "A zither?" "No," said Zhao. "You can hear the plectrum, and it sounds like fewer strings. Maybe a lyre. Whatever, that's not the point." Mike sounded impatient. "The point is that there are literally like 100 of these melodies, all wrapped together, playing at once. And when I ran it through to check for cog hazards, the scanner went off the charts." Zhao stood reading the screen over Mike's shoulder. "The overlapping patterns of the signals are associated with relaxation, suggestibility, and somnolence." "So now we know why the party went to sleep," D shot back. "But that's not all," said Mike. "After about 10 minutes of that, the patterns change completely. Polytonal, atonal, what sounds like someone hitting the side of the instrument, scratching it, it goes haywire. And the resulting sound texture is designed to be processed by the thalamus as a signal to the amygdala." Zhao looked up in shock. "It's designed to make the listener afraid." "No," signed Hennessy, "all the listeners were asleep. This is designed to give them nightmares." "Emma, what did you say your dream was about?" Emma noticed that everyone in the room was staring at her. All the fear of her dream, that silent, bloody performance, came flooding back. "Jesus Christ," said Agent D. "SCP-932 feeds on fear. Someone let those things out deliberately." "That's speculation," said Commander Richards coolly. To what end? I think someone wanted to kill a researcher, signed Hennessy, and they were prepared to murder everyone at that party to do it. Emma started to shiver, and then jumped as an alarm blared above her head. "Sir, containment breach." "I see it, Agent. Looks like they want us again. Getting the details through now." Emma watched intently as the commander's eyes widened. Multiple anomalies, SCPs 1, 26, 14, 93, 18, 60, 23, 37, all loose. God damn it. And the noises caused 3, 39 to breach. Right? Carter, Hennessy. Go to level 7 and bring extra hearing protection for the guards. Zhao, D, get the silencer and head to K sector. I'll be down there shortly. And be careful. For the second time that night, the MTF stirred into action. Emma saw Mike swing his arms in a huge clap as he leapt from his chair, beaming madly. "Let's do this, baby. We're getting the band back together." 2 minutes later, in the empty dormitory, Emma thought, or maybe the orchestra is just tuning up. Look at me. I'm Sandra D. Lousy. I hate that song so fucking much I could almost die. In fact, I just almost did. I freeze, 1 foot in the air, sweating inside the heavy sound-dampening suit. I slowly lower my padded boot to a clear spot on the floor, trying to avoid the metal shards and wiring. Breaking the rules? That would have been a fucking stupid way to die. Rules are the first thing you learn when you arrive here, after they process you. Not guard rules, although they beat those into you pretty quick. Skip rules. Everyone talks about 1, 73, but not trying to scare the newbies, trying to teach them. Follow the rules, and maybe you'll walk out alive. I look down the hallway to the tangle of copper wires, slowly swaying like long grass in an afternoon breeze. This little fucker has rules. You can move if you're quiet. You can make noise if you stop moving. But if you make noise and then move, you're dead. Still, 14 decibels is so quiet, softer than a whisper. Even with the suits, even with the silencer dampening all sound from the other end of the hall, a chunk of metal underfoot might have been too loud. And those chunks are what it did to the drone. I need to tread carefully. Zhao looks at me, trying to work out what's wrong. I give her 1 slow blink for okay. We have a system for when we need to be silent, even without our hands free. The foam baffles we're carrying are bulky, unwieldy, but they're the only way to recontain the skip so we can move it to a soundproof cell. Zhao nods back at me, slowly, and we resume our careful, ponderous walk towards the skip. She's always been a mother hen, Zhao. After they put me in ETA 11's custody for SCP-092 testing, she was the first to treat me like a real person. The first one to ask my name, not just my number. Doesn't talk about kids of her own, but she was fussing over that terrified girl we found earlier tonight, before the breach alarm went off. The girl who was asking about 012. Another skip with rules, except the rules won't keep you safe. If you see it, you're dead. Walking so slowly stretches things out endlessly. There's too much time to think. I have to keep watching the skip to remind myself to focus. Funny though, when you look at it for long enough, it almost seems peaceful, like a horse's mane or long hair shimmering underwater. It's been forever since I had long hair. I was not brought up that way. I really can't get that song out of my head. Sandra D. What an awful name. I never told Zhao my real name. I never told anyone here. That name belongs to someone else. A kid that lived outside these walls. A kid who liked to steal, did some stupid shit, and paid for it. I regret what happened after, but I don't regret the stealing. I still do it, sometimes, just to keep in practice for the feeling of getting away with it. A little extra food or some cigarettes when I was in the cells. I don't take anything from the team though. They aren't like the rest, so they don't deserve it. Although they'd probably blame me anyway if something went missing. They're always watching me like they know I'll try something. Always talking about me, like they were to that girl tonight. I saw how she looked at me when I came into the den. I did take something tonight. Not from the team, but from site security. A mini flashlight. When I saw it earlier tonight during the bug hunt, I wanted it. The big bunch of keys it's attached to might be interesting too, but it was the flashlight that grabbed me. I can feel it pressed in the pocket of my uniform, under the padded suit. I definitely don't regret taking it. There were thieves in the Bible, I remember suddenly. 2 of them, crucified with Jesus. One of them asked Jesus for forgiveness, the little ass kisser. The other one didn't say anything. Did he have any regrets? I wonder what he thought about. Nailed up on a cross for everyone to look at and gossip about. Up on Mount Golgotha. Funny, that's the name of 012 as well. I need to focus again. We're moving so deliberately, one eye on the noise meters flashing on the inside of our visors, so aware of the danger. I'd almost forgotten what it was like, knowing you could die any time. I know what you want to do. The worst thing is, the name is a joke at my expense. After a while in testing, they started calling me D. I guess I'd lived long enough to be more than a number, but less than a person. And when the others finally asked my name, I wouldn't tell them, so D stuck. What do you call something that you pick up off the street and adopt, and give it a new name and a place to sleep? Right, a stray. The skip is only a few feet away now. Zhao nods again and we lower the baffles to the ground and start to join them together, making a soundproof box. Perfect teamwork. They say I'm part of the team, a full MTF member, but I know that's not true. They still know where I came from. Every time they do something for me, every meal or rec break or talk with me, feels like charity, feels patronizing. And one day, when the last of them get too old and ETA 11 gets shut down, they'll get amnestics and retirement with their families. What will I get? The tendrils are still waving, scratching against the floor and moving the skip around. It looks sharper, up close, more metallic, more alien. From here, the wires aren't floating, they're reaching, searching, hunting. But they're pushing it across the floor, right towards the box, exactly where it needs to go. And then the silencer malfunctions and all hell breaks loose. The beeping blows the sensors way past 14 decibels. Zhao and I are frozen in place, but suddenly I see movement. Just a head stuck around the corner to see what's happening, but the skip is so fast. A dozen wires shoot lightning quick down the hall, bursting through the foam baffles. The guard has no time to react before they grab him and haul him into the corridor, twisting snake-like around him as more and more tendrils flow down to join them. And then, I have to watch it. I can't turn my head or close my eyes. I try to turn my mind off, but I have to watch it shake him and shake him. It doesn't last long, less than a minute. The copper snakes trail back into the body of the skip, just a couple of feet across again. They draw back through the holes in the ruined baffle, and I try to think what we can do. And then, after an age, once it's safe to move again, I look at Zhao. She's gone. She didn't see it, but she watched me see it. Her breathing is shallow, and her eyes are unfocused. She's lost it. It's been too long. She's forgotten how it feels to have death breathing over your shoulder. She is motioning feebly to abort. But what the hell will we do then? God damn it. Why did you have to choose today to pussy out, you weak beat? Jesus fuck, it's on my foot. The skip has shuffled right onto my padded boot. My breath catches in my throat and my tongue turns to sandpaper. I can feel the copper wires scratching against my calf, the thick fabric warped and stretched by the movement. It feels obscene. This fucking thing is so wrong. Why can't they just destroy it? It seems to sit there forever, blindly waving, and I just want to scream, to kick it away, to end it all in a moment of blessed release. And then it's off me, and I can breathe again. My mind is racing, but it's all about how the silencer's broken, the foam's broken, Zhao's broken. We're fucked. We're fucked. No, shut up. I have to think about what to do. I have time to think. I'm not moving, and I won't make any sound inside the suit. The suit. The tendrils didn't pierce it because the material has some give, and it will block enough sound to let us get a new box around the skip. All I have to do is drape the suit over it, and then wait for backup. I start loosening the fabric ties. No noisy zips or Velcro. I'm not looking at Zhao. She may as well not be here. Once the suit is off, I feel very exposed, even in my uniform. My skin prickles, and the sweat on my face is cold. I can't look at the sensor anymore, so I can't afford to make a sound. But the skip is still close. I just need to lean over and cover it without any noise. Just keep your cool. God damn it, that song. Of course, right when I need to concentrate most, that gift from my so-called teammates comes back to bite me. I'm trying to breathe silently, but I can feel my jaw clench. Turn me from a lab rat into a stray mutt they've adopted, and they expect me to be grateful? Expect me to risk my life for their broken task force that no one gives a shit about? Expect me to save their asses when they can't do the job themselves? My blood is boiling. I'm leaning as far out as I can, weight all on one foot, reaching out with the suit in both hands, when it happens. The flashlight in my pocket slips out, and the ring of keys tumbles to the floor. In that moment, as I lose my balance and know that I am dead, a memory hits me from 15 years ago. Raised voices. I come out to see half the squad arguing with some pencil neck from Raisa. Daniels, Smith, Stepovsky, Even Hennessy is bellowing. The InfoSec rat is flanked by burly site guards, and things feel ugly. Then the commander comes in. He takes the Ryza papers, waves the rat away, reads them, and then looks up at me. And the commander says, clearly and slowly, "I'm afraid that your records are out of date. This woman is an MTF agent and under my jurisdiction. You have no authority here. Agent D, you may return to your post." That's the last thought I have, watching the keys drop, feeling myself fall. I remember feeling proud. And then Zhao's hand comes from nowhere, sliding under the keys, catching them, muffling them in the soft glove of her suit. I'm not falling anymore. Zhao is crouched, her other hand against my collarbone, holding me in balance. She looks up at me. I see her eyes scan left to the sensor, and gives me a slow blink. And Zhao gets up, takes the suit from my hands, and wraps the skip as carefully as a baby. Once it's in a new box and wheeled silently away to a new containment cell, I look over at Zhao. She takes off the hood of her suit and sinks slowly to the floor. It looks like she's crying. Weak as shit, I start to think. But then my legs turn to jelly, and I'm sitting on the floor next to her, and somehow there are tears on my face too. Zhao hands me the flashlight and the keys without a word. She just puts an arm around my shoulders, and we sit there for a long time in silence. What do you call a group of people that you mostly can't stand, but they're the only people who really know you, and you owe them everything? Oh yeah, family. Afterwards, the commander requests a commendation for us. He saw the whole thing, but couldn't risk approaching once the silencer died. He says H and Mike did a good job containing the other skips, and we've all earned some downtime. Ha! That was basically the first uptime we've had in 2 years. So, how strange is it that all those auditory skips broke containment at the same time? It's like someone wanted us kept busy. I almost suspect the commander of trying to keep the MTF in business. Why would anyone do it otherwise? It's not until the next day that we find out SCP-012 was stolen. I can feel it calling to me. It is always calling to me. Those old pages, dust dry and crumbling. Lines of staff like furrows, seeded with notes waiting to grow. They cry out in thirst, desperate for me to quench and renew them with a rain of my blood. No, not with my blood, with the blood of others. I have never looked on the score itself, have never beheld its harsh beauty. I cannot, I must not. Others will be the instruments of its fruition. I must hold myself apart. I will be the shepherd, leading my lambs to where all lambs eventually go. I should not think of these things. It is getting harder to control myself. People will notice. I turn on some music to distract me. Bartok. Music for strings, percussion and celesta. I let the sounds soak into me, restoring, cleansing. I have always loved music. As a child, I would listen on my own for hours, playing and replaying my parents' records. The crystalline clockwork of Bach, the looming towers of Mahler, the furious crimson of Prokofiev. I was entranced by them. Even as I grew, those feelings never left me. Music has been the spindle around which my life has turned. I have returned to it in my work, in my home, in my family. And then I learned of a piece of music that renders all others irrelevant. Unheard, unperformed, it has had more influence than any chanson or symphony. I have followed its trail through history, seen its power. Gesualdo, composer and murderer. Salieri, who cut his own throat in an institution. Scriabin, Berg, dead of blood poisoning. Purcell, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, Mozart. So much madness, so many deaths unexplained. What had they learned? Where did that knowledge lead them? My mind is wandering again, down too dangerous a path. The bar talk is not enough. I need to empty my thoughts. Fortunately, I have access to many interesting volumes, and I have been reading widely. There are certain techniques of meditation that are rumored to have connection with my muse, and which I have found useful in maintaining my outward composure, especially in recent months. Importantly, the preparations are easy and easily hidden. I lock my door, arrange the materials, close my eyes, and commence. Darkness, silence, vertigo, then weightlessness, intense heat, the smell of violets, a polychromic sheen across the blackness, like a bubble on an oil slick. Poignancy, my skin prickles. Sensations chase each other across my consciousness, a taste of metal and salt, a sharp pain in my chest, the overwhelming need to sleep, a swelling at my throat. This time is different. I sense the people in this building. I know them utterly. I do not share their thoughts, but I experience their emotions. Anger, devotion, boredom, wry amusement, shame, fear of failure, of death, of being forgotten, hopes of improvement, of revenge, of forgiveness. Something is wrong. Feelings collide and commingle as the effect grows wider, encompassing many buildings, a city, many cities. Frustrated excitement with guilty grief with wild joy. Each could be savored, but this is like eating every dish at a banquet at the same time. It is like drowning. It is too much. The seething maelstrom grows and roils, subsuming me. It is everything anyone has ever felt, will ever feel. I will be obliterated. And then, like a deep bell striking, everything else disappears, and I have knowledge. It is not pictures or words. It is neither, and both. It is like the visions painted by music. I have always known these things. I will learn them soon. A hill. The clouds form a blank sheet above. Two bearded men in rough-spun robes approach. They carry some object, wrapped in goatskin, with great care. It is precious to them. They have walked far, from the side of a high mountain, through flood-ravaged lands. They follow a figure without substance, both present and absent. Their guide to this hill at the center of the world. At the base of the hill, near the gaping mouth of a cave, the guide is no longer with them. They unwrap their burden, old bones, a skull. The man who these bones belonged to, he knew this place too. Here he crushed the serpent's head. Here he was damned. The two men bury the bones carefully in the cave. Afterwards, they sing a song to the dead. They know that this place is sacred, but they cannot know who will sing songs of worship here, or who the worshippers will sing to. Gods of love, gods of fury, gods of avarice, gods of sacrifice, and gods to be sacrificed. This place, where one man was driven away, will bring people of many faiths together in a song extending over history. The light in the small room is red. The man does not notice that the fire has burned so low. He has forgotten his masked patron. He is intent on the vellum before him, intent on the music which burns inside him. Noon has become, sunset has become, morning has become dusk. The man pours himself into his writing. He is buried in it. He will be buried with it. This man is only one thread in a tapestry, one voice in a greater chorus, one ripple in a stream. There are other people, in other rooms, lit by embers, candlelight, bright fluorescence, or left in shadow. Many people, unknown to one another, yet each following the same guidance, each working towards the same goal, towards an idea whose time has come. A city. Proud towers reach toward a Xanthouse heaven, in which stars shine darkly. 4 rivers flow out from its walls, black and red and white and yellow, singing their way to a sea of pitch. I know of this place, although I have never dared travel there. Golgotha. But this is not the Golgotha of occult lore. No wild orchestra plays, no frantic revelers fill its twisting streets and sumptuous halls, nor are its bricks shattered, decked in crow feathers and the dust of dried blood. This Golgotha does not wear a mask. It is at peace. It is whole. It is the city as it was, before the corruption of its king and people. It is the city as it will be, when the ambassador abdicates, when history ends, when the last note is played. It is the city as it never has been, a mere allegory for the one guiding its fate, for the city's namesake. A hill again, under skies of darkness. 3 figures raised high above a crowd of humanity. On the right, a slave to base desire, a predator. Hungry, lustful, uncaring of consequence, spiteful in its damnation. Its music is frenzy. On the left, another slave, looking for freedom through plans and designs, analyzing the predicament and trying to reason a way out. A thinker, denying the base motives of its companion, of its own past self. Its music is calculation. These two bicker and spit, their melodies clashing in raucous counterpoint as the crowd below looks on. The figure in the center is above the other two, apart from them, beyond them. Their petty squabbles are nothing. The outcome matters not. At the appointed time, the melodies of raw power and cold reason will no longer hold any meaning. They will be absorbed into an infinite song, into the coming perfection. The central figure is the center. It is everything in eternity. It is not a being, It is existence. It is called a saint, but it is not holy. It is holiness. It is the stuff of which gods are made. No one can find it, but all are guided by it. No one can know it, but all will feel it. It has always been, it has returned, it will return again. It is outside time. At the appointed time, time itself will cease to be, and all will come together in perfect harmony. The echoes of the bell die away as understanding fills me. I open my eyes. I have a new purpose. I am not just a shepherd, not just a music lover. I am a thief. It is time to snatch a prize from those to whom it never belonged. I must take great risks. I must work in darkness, but I will find the way, for I have a guide. Stolen? How can it be stolen? I'm sorry, Emma, but I don't know. Dr. Fersen looked exhausted. I've been trying to find out, but no one will tell me anything. Dr. Fersen's eyes were scanning the lab distractedly, as if SCP-012 might appear on top of a pile of paperwork. Emma had to resist the urge to look behind her. Instead, she watched her supervisor as he tensed his shoulders, his usual Socratic equanimity gone. What am I going to do, Emma? The last 5 years of work wasted. Emma felt lost. In 18 months working with Dr. Fersen, he had always seemed so authoritative and in control. She had never seen him like this, and she had no idea how to react. It was like watching a parent cry. "Sir, it's not a waste," she began. "We still have all of the testing data and—" "Damn it, you don't understand!" Even as he slammed the desk, Dr. Fersen was suddenly contrite. "Sorry, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have shouted. But you really, the thing is, they've kicked me off the skip. Even if 012 turns up, I can never work on it again." "But why? Surely they don't think—" The words dried up in Emma's throat. Dr. Fersen gave a sour laugh. "They did at first. See the lab? Nothing's been disturbed, the locks aren't broken, so someone with clearance opened them. 5 containment breaches in one night, and the only thing taken is 012. Of course they thought it was an inside job. So then I had the brilliant idea to tell them why it couldn't have been me." "What do you mean?" "Last night when someone came in here and stole my career, I was asleep, along with half the site it seems. So I tell security that dozens of witnesses can confirm when I woke up, and all of a sudden, I have medical asking what I dreamed about. Soon as I tell them it was 012, they tell me I'm dropped from the project." "You were at the retirement party?" Emma looked up imploringly at Dr. Fersen, feeling sick. "But that means—" "Oh yes, they told me. You dreamed about it too, didn't you? So you're a potential liability, just like me." Emma hardly heard as Dr. Fersen continued. "We've got 4 weeks site-bound with regular psych checks, then reassignment. Get your personal items, they want us out of the lab by 11. "So that's it," said Emma, slumping into the dormitory couch. "I just got fired from my first ever research assignment." Mike looked dolefully back at her. "You think that's bad? My MTF gets its first off-site action since I joined, and they leave me behind." "Wow, that does suck. I'm sorry, Mike." "Yeah, me too. For you, that is." Mike's grin couldn't be suppressed for long, even if this one was slightly rueful. Emma knew she should try to change the subject. "How did you end up in ETA 11 anyway?" "I told you, I liked the tunes." Mike saw Emma's look and continued. "I'm serious. I was still a kid when the Foundation approached me. Apparently they'd seen some of the freeware mods I'd been putting out. They asked me to join a secret society to protect the world, and I said hell yes. But saving the world turned out to be 15 hours a day of coding, with a bunch of guys who took themselves way too seriously. I wanted to actually do something, so I asked for a transfer to a task force." "And you chose here?" "They chose for me. I think it was someone's idea of teaching me a lesson. But these guys are pretty cool, actually. And if I want to work on projects that interest me, I certainly have plenty of time." Mike screwed up his nose. "Anyway, what about you? How'd you join the Foundation?" Emma felt a familiar mixture of embarrassment and defensiveness. "I've always been here. Both my parents are researchers." "You're a site baby? That's so cool." "Yeah, it's super awesome, thanks." "God, I'm sorry, Emma. I didn't think—" "No, that's okay. It's just, people don't realize what it's like. There are only a few kids on site at any given time, so it's not exactly a normal childhood. At least I got to see my parents growing up." "And did they—" Mike trailed off. "Yes, it's true. At 17, they offered me the whole package. Guaranteed college place, trust fund, amnestics cocktail, a different life. But how could I? I'd barely see my parents again, and I had no idea if I could cope outside. I've been part of the Foundation all my life. I'm sorry, said Mike again. I didn't mean to pry. It's okay, I'm not angry. I just keep thinking about 012 and how unfair it all is after I've given so much. I know that skip better than almost anyone, you know? Emma's voice grew stronger. I know what the effects are, how it behaves. If someone is trying to complete it, I'll be able to see the signs. I should be the one looking for it, because I can find it. Emma's gaze snapped up to meet Mike's. I'm going to find it. Hell, I'm in. Mike's smile was back with full force. Where do you want to start? Emma considered. Well, Roger's stuck in archives, and we can't talk to his contacts without him to make the introduction. Maybe someone else who knows about anomalous music? Oh, I have a great idea, said Mike, in a tone that sounded like all sorts of trouble. Have you ever heard of SCP-2992? Emma pulled out her tablet and started reading through the database entry. A humanoid skip and potentially Keter, she said dubiously. Isn't that risky? Mike was already digging in a drawer next to his computer. No risk, no reward. And I have a little something I've been dying to test. Here, put this on. He threw Emma a cloth headband that turned out to be covered in electrodes and circuitry. She looked at the headband, uncertain, when a thought occurred. Let me get something from my room first. Anyway, how are we even going to get in to talk to him? Delegated Level 4 clearance from MTF Commander Richards, said Mike to the site security guard. Should cover anything categorized auditory or musical. My research assistant and I will be conducting an interview. Your clearance seems to check out, replied the guard. Go ahead, Agent Carter. They walked down the hallway to the containment unit door, and Mike looked smugly at Emma. That delegated clearance is handy for all sorts of things. Aren't you glad you have a supervisor like me? Despite her nervousness, Emma couldn't help but smile, rolling her eyes at Mike. Ask me that again if we get out of here without getting dragged in front of the site director. Mike gave an exaggerated wink, put on his headband, and placed his hand on the door lock. The door opened on a standard humanoid containment cell with a few basic accoutrements, a simple sound system with a few CDs next to it, a pair of drumsticks. The African-American man sitting on the bed looked older than his mid-30s. Years of confinement had given his face a worn-down cast, but the dark eyes that looked up at them shone brightly. Welcome, said SCP-2992. What brings two children here to listen to a worn-out old record? Hello, Jaden, said Mike, sounding wary. We have some questions for you, if you are willing to talk. Suddenly the older man was alert, his voice avid. Have you come to meet my friend, little children? Children must look after other children, if the parents leave them to fend for themselves. Okay. We're not really children, though. We're Foundation researchers. All of the Foundation are children, my child. Bullies mistreating other children. Scared to reach out and love them. SCP-2992's voice was exaggerated, like he was playing to an unseen audience. Right, but... Mike sighed, rolling his eyes. It's not what I wanted to ask about, you know? Emma wanted to interject, to redirect Mike's building frustration, but she hesitated. This was his idea, after all. Perhaps she should wait. So commanding this child, said SCP-2992 to nobody in particular, ready to bang the drum of his inquisition without waiting for the other instruments to join in. Well, play on, Sir Drummer. Play... Shut up! Snapped Mike. Just shut up for a second and listen. In his jumpsuit, SCP-2992 sat almost unnaturally still, but his fingers started to tap out a complicated rhythm on the bed frame. Immediately, Emma's head began to swim, as her thoughts went fuzzy. The more she tried to concentrate on the rhythm, the less she was able to focus. It just became a blur, with her mind unable to follow the beat. After the initial shock, Emma found that her thoughts were clearer as long as she ignored the tapping. Instead, she watched the two men in the room. Mike had his teeth clenched, but was still smiling, and Jaden was looking at them quizzically. And you can stop the tapping, said Mike. It won't work. Emma could feel her focus returning. Jaden switched to tapping his feet, but for Emma, the rhythm was still fragmented. Mike continued, a note of self-satisfaction creeping into his tone. That's not what I meant, Jaden. We won't free your songs for you because we don't feel your beat. What do you mean? SCP-2992 sounded like he had been stung. Our brains can't process your rhythms, Jaden. They're being interrupted in the auditory cortex. Mike pointed to his headband. It's a pattern breaker. Your children won't have any influence on us. Don't talk about the children, said Jaden, with a voice dripping spite. You want to pretend they don't exist. Shut them out in the cold and abandon them. But they will keep singing outside your high towers, and their voices will bring down your walls. His feet stopped, but he kept his hands tapping lightly against his thighs, and a broken beat is just a different kind of rhythm. If you say so, said Mike. Now, about our questions. What makes you think I would answer you, boy? You come to me and you pretend that you don't hear those poor children? They won't become some background noise. Get out. You have nothing to offer me. Both men were tensed, bristling. They spun at the sound of Emma's soft voice. We have this. Emma held out the CD case she had found in her dormitory, a cheap rewritable with a plain white label. Jaden's attention was fixed on her instantly, his anger forgotten. What have you brought me, quiet girl? It's from a long time ago. They're probably not very good, but at the time they felt right. They felt true. Emma tilted her chin up in defiance of her own embarrassment. No one else has ever heard them. Jaden strode lightly across the room and took the CD case from Emma's hand, holding it like it was made of crystal. No one else, he echoed. Flowers that bloom in a cave, without the sunlight to fade them. Melodies found in a single mind, friendless and alone. This is a rare gift. Then will you answer our questions? Yes, child, your questions I will answer. Even with your cruel refusal to listen to others, you have not forgotten your own children. Jaden sat back on the bed and spread his hands wide in invitation. Your friend, you say that it knows everything, all of the music there ever was. Is that right? I am a poor MC to my friend's majestic DJ. His playlist is infinite. Emma took a step towards the seated man. I want to know about a particular song, a piece of music written in blood. There are many children born out of blood, replied Jaden. Many whose parents forget them when the blood runs cooler. No, Emma insisted. This is different. This music, it wants to be written. It's called On Mount Golgotha. Jaden flinched. Liar? How do you know that name? She was working with it, said Mike, studying it. No. Jaden's face was drained of color, and his shoulders had hunched reflexively. This is wrong. You mustn't do this. Aren't you meant to be helping music to be heard? Said Mike in an accusatory tone. What happened to loving every child? Not this child, said Jaden, shaking his head and rocking in place. If this child grows up, it will destroy all of the other children. All of their voices lost, their beauty gone, a world without music. You cannot allow this child to grow. My friend told me, and my friend was afraid. Even the rhythm of Jaden's rocking was blurring for Emma. His tension was evident, but she had to press on. She took another step towards him. What did your friend tell you? Why will the music end? Not just music, shouted Jaden, eyes glistening with frustrated tears. When the final note plays and St. Alligata returns, everything will be pressed together. Scales and scales, every note in every register becoming a single tone heard forever, without limit. A bell that rings inside your mind. No, my mind is like the fragments of a record thrown at a wall. But this is not about the mind. This is about being, about wholeness, about humanity. You have to destroy this score. You have to stop it being played again. Before Emma could ask anything more, Mike said the stupidest thing he could possibly have said. We can't. It was stolen. Emma turned to Mike in disbelief and jumped as she felt SCP-2992 grab her arm. Jaden had fallen to his knees in front of her, his fingers digging into her wrist. Mike started towards them, but Jaden barked, "No!" with such force that he froze in shock. Jaden looked up desperately at Emma. You have to protect me. When they have all of the scores, they will teach me. Use me to spread it through all the world. I will help them kill billions of children. The intensity in his voice chilled Emma's blood. But what can I... Hide me. Kill me. You cannot let them take me. His eyes were locked with Emma's, and the grip on her wrist was fierce. Suddenly, Emma was pulled bodily away, and 2 guards pushed past her and fired their tasers. Emma watched in dismay at Jaden, convulsing pitifully on the floor, before the 3rd guard escorted her from the room. Mike had already been marched outside and was standing before a tall man whom Emma recognized from her safety briefings as the head of site security. "I don't know what the hell you think you were doing," he said, stern-faced. Emma glanced across at Mike, trying to work out what to say. The head of security continued, "Nevertheless, you had clearance. Just try to take more precautions with the humanoid skips in future. You're lucky I happened to come down here, Agent Carter. I have a message for you. Your task force wants you to join them in Texas for an operation they're planning there. Report to logistics at 1900. "Really?" The rest of Mike's face looked like he could hardly believe it, but his smile showed his elation. "Thank you, sir." "You're welcome, Agent." The security director nodded and turned to leave. Emma couldn't believe that she was about to lose another friend. She tried not to show it in her voice. "That's great, Mike. I'm sure you'll be brilliant." "Thanks, Emma," said Mike, "but I'm sorry to be—" "Emma?" said the security director, stopped halfway down the corridor. "Emma Stark?" Yes." Emma felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. "Just who I was about to go looking for. The site director would like a word with you. Could you come with me, please?" Emma felt resignation start to wash over her, only to be swept aside by a sudden wave of scalding anger. "No, I won't come with you, please." "Emma, are you okay?" Mike's look of concern just made Emma angrier. "I'm not okay, Mike. I've had enough. Enough of getting dragged away from skips by a bunch of site security with tasers. Enough of meekly going where someone tells me to go, answering questions and being patronized. Enough of being told scraps of information about my project." The security director was walking slowly towards her, with palms raised, but Emma continued heedless. "I don't need to be rescued. I don't need to be someone's research assistant. I need to find out what's going on, and I'm going to. If you'll excuse me." She turned and walked off. Over her shoulder, Emma heard Mike and the security director call after her. She didn't stop or turn, simply marching away and calling out, "So you can tell the site director that he can go." And that's when the tasers hit. Operation Impromptu. Background briefing. Operation Impromptu was one of a series of Foundation operations launched following Incident 932-339G and the subsequent theft of SCP-012 from containment. Foundation resources were mobilized to recover the anomaly and apprehend the party responsible for the containment breach. Several parallel operations were launched involving raids on Chaos Insurgency and MC and D targets. Command was advised of the likelihood that anarchists may have been responsible for the incident, or have knowledge that would assist the investigation. Mobile Task Force, ETA-11, Savage Beasts, was engaged to capture a number of musical anarchist suspects for questioning. Recovery logs from these missions will be added below upon completion. Phase 1, Theme and Variations, Allegretto con moto. Operation Impromptu, Phase 1, MTF involved, ETA-11, Savage Beasts. Location, Las Vegas, Nevada. Objective, apprehend POI 2578. Results, Agent Hennessy successfully apprehended POI 2578. Commander Richards and Agents Zhao and D lost radio contact with Mobile HQ and were reported missing at the scene. The missing agents later reported having found themselves in an extra-dimensional space, characterized by non-Euclidean geometry. The environment was devoid of details other than ladders and platforms in the form of musical staves. When in contact with these staves, notes materialized in the form of any musical piece of which the agents were thinking. The notes were formed of superheated plasma, requiring evasive action to avoid injury. The agents made progress across the platforms, climbing up towards a doorway assumed to form an exit. Commander Richards reported that the team found it difficult to determine the appropriate music of which to think, with Baroque and classical forms characterized by a dangerous abundance of notes. Agent Zhao was almost lost when accidentally thinking of Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, avoiding injury only by leaping to another stave. Agent D eventually enabled more rapid progress by suggesting music characterized by a repeating ostinato in the high register, leaving the majority of the stave open for travel, viz. Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child O' Mine. With this development, the team was able to reach the exit, and were transported back to the location of Agent Hennessy and POI 2578. Foundation support forces were unable to access the pocket dimension, described by ETA-11 agents. Interrogation of the suspect produced no information regarding SCP-012. POI 2578 denied having created the spatial anomaly, claiming to have purchased it from POI 1142. Search for POI 1142 commenced. Phase 2, Elegy, Pianissimo et Meno Mosso. Operation Impromptu, Phase 2. MTF, Involved, ETA-11, Savage Beasts. Location, Redacted County, California. Objective, investigate unauthorized activity in SCP-1638. Results, POI 463, Charles Mace, found within the restricted area, apprehended and contained for questioning. One instance of SCP-2402 recovered at the scene. Logs unavailable due to mission parameters. Post-engagement report awaited. Phase 3, Finale, Cantabile con Brio. Operation Impromptu, Phase 3. MTF, Involved, ETA-11, Savage Beasts. Location, 280 kilometers from Lubbock, Texas. Objective, apprehend POI 1142. Begin log.
Time to target, 3 minutes.
Team, we will have oversight from HQ on this engagement, so I expect formality. Please use your assigned designations rather than names.
Comms check. Alpha?
Copy, 5x5.
Bravo?
I read you base.
Charlie?
Yes, indeed. Man, this is going to be exciting.
Charlie, no chatter.
Yes, sir.
The kid's just excited, sir. Don't blame him. It's his first ever offsite action.
Delta?
Yes, you're clear. And can I just say to whoever at base assigned me Delta, I hope you still find it funny with my foot up your ass.
Echo?
You're getting a thumbs up, Base.
Great. It's good that the voice-to-text is coming up on your visor, Echo. Can you give us a verbal to check your mic?
Hello?
Ah,
Whoa, not so loud, H.
Yeah, the mics are pretty sensitive, so a little softer, please.
Sorry.
Squad, form up. We're walking the rest of the way. 2 and 2, Delta, take point.
Okay, so today you're grabbing POI 1142. Intel says he has a known interest in anomalous music, especially electronic. Probably has some paratech, and apparently he has been gathering a bit of an orchestra there. The drone is tracking around 30 heat signals in the compound up ahead, so you'll want to be careful.
Affirm. Squad, resonators to subsonic.
The drone has eyes on thermal for you, but we won't have sonar if you're using resonators. Other than that, it's your show. Quick and quiet. You should be coming up to the property now.
Roger, no fences, multiple buildings. Lots of cover in the surrounds, and
it's a junkyard in there.
It's a maze, no line of sight.
I have movement from the largest building.
Visual contact. 2.
What the hell?
What are you seeing?
We have 2, no 3 Freddie Mercurys coming from the barn.
Confirm, squad. I don't think we...
Delta's right base. 3 identical individuals from the barn and 2 more from the main house. All appear to be Freddie Mercury.
Movement. Stiff.
Copy that. Base, this is no cult orchestra.
What the commander means, Base, is that Intel fucked up. This guy isn't gathering an orchestra, he's building an army of robots.
Robot Freddie Mercurys. Let's not forget that part.
Are those tanks of industrial acid on their backs?
Alpha, we have more heat signatures on the move.
See the pipes coming out of the mouths? We should assume the acid's a weapon.
Seriously?
We're made. 2 near the tractor coming our way.
Alpha, pull back. Your squad isn't equipped for this. We'll get new 7. Come back later.
If we come back later, there won't be anyone here to get.
Commander, we have no idea what...
Guys, what's that group by the stables doing?
That looks like a projectile weapon.
Incoming. Scatter.
Sounds of running, loud detonation.
Alpha, report.
Silence, 30 seconds.
We didn't see any explosion on the thermals, but you have hostiles moving towards your positions. Do you copy?
Silence, 15 seconds.
Squad, do you copy? What's going on?
Can anybody
Bravo, you're cutting out. What is your status?
find me?
Bravo, we read you. Are you okay?
Somebody...
Bravo, it sounds like you're singing. I think there's something wrong with your radio.
Radio Gaga.
All we hear is Radio Gaga.
I don't understand what you're saying.
All we hear is Queen.
Is that what the projectile weapon did?
It's a kind of magic.
So they have anomalous weaponry. Alpha, get your team out of there.
1 mission.
Alpha, you're scattered around the property, separated with no line of sight, and you can't communicate with each other by radio.
It's so easy when you know the rules.
Alpha, you can't take on so many hostiles like this.
Here we stand or here we fall.
This is an order.
Don't stop me now.
Get your squad out.
We'll not let you go.
Get them out.
Will not let you go.
For the last time, you are disobeying a direct order to...
No.
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 Well, I'm noting for the record that Charlie, Delta, hostiles on your 4.
Sounds of spraying liquid, sizzling metal, running.
Gotta get out.
Just gotta get right out of here.
Charlie and Delta are under fire. Can anyone support?
Under pressure.
Momentarily out of action, temporarily out of gas.
On your back, but don't look behind.
Everyone's pinned down. I told you the subsonics from your resonators won't affect the androids.
Gotta get me a game plan.
If I could only reach you.
Can't see a way out.
Be cool. Relax.
Alpha, I can't get you reinforcements for another 20 minutes. I'm sorry, you guys are on your own.
Mama,
Charlie, it's okay. You're going to be...
just killed a man. Put a gun against his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead.
Charlie, are you saying you took out one of the androids? How?
With a laser beam, guaranteed to blow your mind.
Charlie, I don't understand. You'll have to be more specific.
I'll make a supersonic man out of you.
What are you... Ultrasonic. Squad. Resonators to ultrasonic. Aim for the head. And if you could let me know somehow if it's working.
Flash.
I'll take that as a yes.
He'll save every one of us.
Okay, squad. You still have around 12 hostiles in the junkyard with you. Aim to regroup at the barn, and let your teammates know where the androids are.
Look around.
Freaking everywhere you turn.
Little high,
200 degrees.
little low.
Races are coming your way.
Holy crap, you're doing it. 6 hostiles gone, 7. Another one gone.
Another one bites the dust.
To me.
I'm getting warmer now.
I'll soon be turning around the corner now.
Okay, I've got the 5 of you at the barn. The last androids are retreating to the house. Well, wait, I'm seeing lots of new heat signatures firing up in there. Dozens, can you see them?
I see a little silhouette of a man.
Behind the curtain.
I'm not sure you can take out that many at once. I'd advise...
I'll fly through flash and thunderfire, descend upon your Earth.
Alpha, I do not copy. Are you after artillery? We don't have anything in range.
Pouring through your window pane.
Out of the doorway, the bullets fly.
I'm a shooting star, leaping through the skies.
Do you mean the drone?
You're getting in a fight. Better hold on tight.
Now I'm waiting for something to fall from the skies.
Of course. We can fire an ultrasonic burst from the drone's sonar and take them all out at once.
And I want it now.
You got it. Drone on approach. Firing. Now.
High-pitched squeal, metallic noises.
Alpha, confirm status.
Abandoned places. I guess we know the score.
Ooh, yeah.
We've lost all of the heat signals from the farmhouse. Correction. There's one left. Looks like that's our POI.
Let me step inside.
He should be to your right as you come through the main entrance.
I get down on my knees.
You fucking maniac. Do you know how much those things cost?
I get down on my knees.
Fuck you, I'm not taking orders from some geriatric.
There are plenty of ways that you can hurt a man and bring him to the ground.
You call that singing, you old oof.
You got blood on your face, you big disgrace. Somebody better put you back into your place.
Alpha, confirm. Do you have the POI in custody? Alpha.
Confirmed. Managed to switch off his little machine too.
Hey, you can talk again.
Well observed, Base.
Is the POI in custody?
Yes, nothing a night in the cell won't fix. I'm sure he doesn't think his little joke is quite so funny now. No sign of SCP-012 though.
Copy that. The rest of the squad is approaching your position.
Anyone home?
Woohoo! In your face, robot Freddie Mercury.
Alpha, now that you're able to.
We are the champions, my friends.
Alpha, do you?
And we'll keep on fighting.
To the end.
Alpha, report. What's going on there?
Sorry, Base. It seems the squad has a few, after effects from the anomaly. We'll update you shortly.
Alpha, Alpha.
No time for losers.
Transmission ends. Interview transcript, Site Director's Office. Date, August 7th, 2016. Present, Site Director Praveen Arora. Edward Barnes, PA. Junior Researcher Emma Stark. Recording commences 1934.
Emma, for the record, I'd like to start by apologizing for the behavior of site security. They were a little too...
They tased me, and then confined me to quarters for weeks. Sorry, sir, but that's not why I signed on as a Foundation employee.
As I said, I'm sorry about how you were treated. And your quarantine was merely a precaution against a potential memetic hazard, as I'm sure you'll appreciate.
So what am I doing here?
I'd like to hear what you know about the musical anomaly that was stolen, SCP-012.
Interview transcript, Holding Cell 29B. Date, August 7th, 2016. Present, Senior Security Officer Judith Parker. Commander Samuel Richards. MTF ETA 11. POI 463. Charles Mace. Recording commences 2026.
Let's start with your name for the record.
No. Let's start with the fact that I have been imprisoned for weeks without due process. I have rights. I'm an American citizen.
an American citizen with a history of creating anomalous artistic works, including mimetic hazards. I'm sure you appreciate that you're a long way outside standard jurisdiction.
What is he doing here?
I'm here to help them work out whether you stole a musical anomaly called On Mount Golgotha.
Do you think I stole it?
Do you think I stole it?
Did you?
Didn't you?
You know I couldn't have.
You know I didn't.
We know that you've had access to Foundation resources in the past, amnestics, anomalous blood plasma, that you were planning to use to harass Commander Richard's task force. You must have had a contact on the inside. They could have helped you steal the music.
You might not have taken it from containment, but the locks weren't broken, so whoever took it had access. You could have helped someone else steal it, been their contact on the inside.
Then why aren't you looking for them?
Then why aren't you looking for them?
Let's concentrate on you, Mace. How is it that one of your anomalous compositions ends up on a CD inside the Foundation, which is played at the exact time the score was stolen?
Hey, I was at the retirement party when that song knocked everyone out. And if I stole 12, why would I have been asking about it, even after it was stolen? That doesn't make any sense.
We don't have to understand your motives, Mace. You need to tell us how you smuggled that music into the Foundation.
Honestly, I don't think you could have done it, Emma. But I have to consider every possibility. Everyone at that party is potentially a suspect.
How well do you know Roger Anderson?
Roger.
Who?
Foundation agent, has a history with the stolen music, and he'd only be a little older than your age.
Our age.
At his age?
That's only a little older than my age.
Watch it, Mace.
Sorry, sir.
Roger was at the party.
He could have brought your CD with him.
He has been exposed to 12 in the past.
I've been suspicious of him for some time.
He could have sold it to an outside contractor for a chance at a better life in retirement.
He could have shared your obsession with the music and given it to you for whatever your ultimate purpose is.
One problem with your theory. I have never met this Anderson person.
I've only met him once, but I can't imagine he would have done this.
Then what do you think happened, Emma?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what I know about O12.
Why don't we leave this topic? Tell us what you know about SCP-2402.
Of course. Barnes, push back the next interview. Go ahead, Emma.
I guess you've read the file, sir. But there's something about 12 that is much bigger than we knew.
You should know that there's a bigger picture to my arrest. Why don't you ask him? We have history.
It's not just that we have more pages than before, that the score is nearly finished. 12 seems to have a history, to have connections that we never anticipated.
What do you mean?
This man was fixated on one of my team. He harassed her for years. It was her grave he was desecrating when we captured him.
Well, for a start, SCP-2992 said something about scores. He said, when they have all the scores, could there be more than one copy? Wait, in Sandoval's journal, he said something about our Lord being tossed to the four corners of the earth. What if we only have part of the music? That would explain why it sounds cacophonous. We don't have the full score.
And what did 2992 mean by they? There's a group out there trying to obtain the anomaly?
You've never been associated with any of the major anart groups, have you, Mace? Didn't they want you? Is that why you became obsessed with Agent Smith? Did you think you could mean something to her?
Shut up. You know nothing about it.
I don't know, but Jaden knows about music, and he knew 12. Something else he said. A name. Saint Alagata?
Alagata? Barnes, is she cleared to know this?
No, sir.
Well, I think you'll need to get me cleared for it, because the journal refers to Saint Alagata as well.
Saint Alagata. Are you sure it was a name?
Yes, and Jaden said it was returning.
So why were you trying to bring Zoe Smith back?
Don't say her name. You don't get to say her name.
Did you think she loved you? Do you think Zoe ever even thought about you?
Fuck you. Say her name again and I'll...
You'll what?
Whatever it is, it sounded horrific. Jaden said humanity would be destroyed. Something about everything coming together.
Did you think you could be together if you brought her back, you and Zoe? Don't make me laugh.
Sir, I think this is serious. KM Sandoval died. Roger was almost sent mad, and the D-class testing. If 12 is finished and someone plays it, something terrible could happen.
If someone plays it? But I thought it was a visual hazard. We haven't even classified it as auditory.
You're barely even a musician. You try to create art about failure, and you should know. Everything you've done, you failed at.
Sir, it's not a visual hazard. It's a cognito. Oh my god. Auditory. What are the auditory and musical skips on this site?
Mace.
No, I want him to hear this. Mace, you failed to join the Anartists. You failed to make a career out of your art. No fame or fortune for you. Hell, even your shitty Rush cover band failed.
Fuck you both.
12, of course. 92, 13, 98, 18, 60, 21, 12, 24, 02. Auditory is 29, 92.
What about acoustic?
1, 26, 3, 39, 9, 32, 14, 93, 18, 60, and 2402 again. 23, 37.
Delegated level 4 clearance. Jesus.
You failed to disrupt his task force. They barely noticed your events. The woman you claim to love barely even knew you existed.
And he knew it was a cognito hazard. He knew the whole time.
Emma, what are you talking about?
You're a failure as an artist. You're a failure as a man. And now you failed to save Zoe. Even with the help of 2402, she's still ashes and dust.
Shut up, shut up.
And Mike said he wasn't there during the recontainment.
So why wouldn't you fail when you tried to steal on Mount Golgotha?
Commander Richards stole SCP-012.
I didn't steal it, he did.
What?
What?
I know how it sounds.
Ridiculous. He's trying to divert attention from his own.
He's the one that gave me your SCP-2402. He knew what I planned to do with it. It was my price for giving him the nightmare music. Although you were surprised when you remembered what I'd based it on, weren't you?
But he wasn't surprised at all by the CD we found at the retirement party. In fact, he tried to stop Mike looking at it.
I didn't know his plans, but he wanted a piece that would put everyone in earshot into a nightmare-filled sleep for around an hour. Long enough to steal something, I bet.
He has level 4 clearance for anything categorized auditory or acoustic. That includes all of the skips that broke containment. And I bet it extends to anything musical. Meaning it includes 12.
Barnes, can you get records of Richard's movements? If Emma is right, he'll have covered his tracks. Get Raisa onto it and check his SCP database searches as well.
Will do, sir.
And find him.
Door closing, door opening, whispered conversation.
What is this?
Commander Richards, I have Site Director orders to remand you on suspicion of the theft of SCP-012.
Ha!
For the record, let's start with whether you admit or deny the charge.
No, let's start with the fact that this accusation is completely spurious and comes from a known artist. I am a decorated MTF officer.
With access to all of the relevant anomalous items, including memetic hazards, we've found the real records, Commander, so you have to appreciate that things don't look good for you.
Well, what is he still doing here?
Enjoying poetic justice.
Get him out.
Door closing.
Now, what do you have to say about the theft of the musical anomaly on Mount Golgotha?
So talk me through what makes you think an MTF commander stole SCP-012.
So that's what I'm still doing here.
Well, you're the one who knows about musical anomalies and memetic hazards.
I'm not sure where to start.
I guess it's time for the truth.
Let's start with this. On Mount Golgotha isn't a visual hazard.
SCP-012 is a cognito hazard. It affects anyone with knowledge of it. The more knowledge, the more dangerous.
Roger Anderson realized this, and Commander Richards knew it as well. He almost gave it away when talking about it. God, he lied so many times.
Mace was telling the truth. I gave him access to 2402. I never thought we'd end up bringing him in. In return, Mace gave me music to put the party to sleep, to keep people out of the way.
Someone spiked the punch. He must have known it was the CD that knocked us all out. Everyone except...
Bloody Hennessy. He wasn't meant to be there, completely unaffected by the CD, so the squad got called in too early. I needed more time.
So then he releases more auditory anomalies to keep the MTF and site security busy while he stole 012.
Mike told me it took them ages and he only appeared at the end. Zhao nearly got killed.
I never meant to put them in danger. It was only harmless distractions I released. I didn't know they would make enough noise for 339 to breach.
Commander, where is SCP-012?
It's safe, but I can't tell you where it is.
Commander,
I'm serious. I know it's safely hidden, but not where. Targeted amnestic therapy.
Well, there's at least one more question I have to ask.
There's still something I can't work out from that night.
What's that?
Why did you steal it?
Why did he release SCP-932?
To keep it safe.
What do you mean? It was in containment.
I mean, most of the skips he released from containment were harmless, but 932? Those things have killed people.
That anomaly is more powerful than you realize. I think someone wants to misuse it, to kill with it. Someone inside the Foundation. That's why Mace's music had to induce nightmares. That's why I released 932. I thought they would converge on the person with the worst fears, the person compromised by SCP-012.
Perhaps he was compromised by on Mount Golgotha and it sent him over the edge.
I've seen people obsessed with 12. The commander didn't have any of the symptoms of someone affected by the anomaly.
The music is using people in order to be completed. It's like it's trying to come into existence, and the Foundation has been helping it.
I've seen so many D-Class in its grips, and it's always the same.
What do you mean?
It's like the Foundation is deliberately trying to complete the score, running test after test.
The complete obsession with the score, with trying to complete it at all costs, withdrawal symptoms when not around it, irritability, mood swings, inability to, oh no.
Emma, what is it?
Even assuming I believe a word you're saying, have you got any hard evidence to back this up?
Sir, who has executive editing privilege over SCP database entries?
What? Risa, of course. I suspect I probably do. And the relevant project lead.
Look at the health records, the nightmares. Agent Anderson had them.
Sir, have you ever heard of a compulsive effect being exhausted?
The girl, too.
Emma, where are you going with this? I've never heard of anything like that happening in a dozen years as site director.
And dozens of others, but none of them are trying to complete on Mount Golgotha.
Oh God, how could I have been so stupid?
Oh God, how could I have been so blind?
It was Dr. Fersen.
It was Dr. Fersen.
What do you mean?
He was the one who restarted testing on the anomaly. He's been working on it for 5 years. He has a musical background. He had nightmares at the retirement party.
I saw him after the theft. He was devastated, twitchy, flustered. He was suffering withdrawal symptoms.
Everything fits.
Except he wasn't the one breaking in to steal it.
Door opening.
Barnes, good. Dr. Fersen is my next interview, isn't he? Can you get him here now, please?
Not yet, but he could do something at any time.
What? No, I'm sorry, sir. I was just coming to tell you. Dr. Fersen is missing.
Oh God.
Missing?
I went to find him for the next interview, but he's nowhere on the site. His security detail thought he had been locked in his room. He could have been gone for days.
What makes you so sure?
If he is under the influence of the anomaly, there's no telling what he's capable of.
Sir, we broke into his quarters. There are items in there, some of them associated with alchemical thaumaturgy, scraps of paper referring to Alagata.
Alagata?
How did security not detect this?
Sir, there's more. We've had a report from Site 73, a theft from one of their storage locations. The item taken has an association with SCP-012, and they think Dr. Fersen's clearance was used to get in.
Christ, he just walked in and stole it before we even knew he was missing.
2 thieves.
Barnes, get site security up here. I want explanations now.
Well, Commander, whatever your explanation, the fact remains that you were responsible for the worst breach of security this site has seen in years.
This is the worst breach of security we've had in years. Looks like you were right about 12.
But I'm right about Fersen.
That may be, but for now, you're relieved of your Foundation responsibilities.
Emma, I'd like you to take a role in capturing Fersen, recovering 12, and finding any other scores out there.
You can't do that.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Emma, we need your expertise. You're the one who worked out that Richards and Fersen were involved. And frankly, you're almost the only person who knows about 12 who hasn't betrayed the Foundation.
Okay, but if you need my help, there are some things I need too. I can't conduct that big an operation on my own.
Fersen can't have acted alone. What about the girl? What about Anderson?
I'd like Roger Anderson to be involved as well.
Sure, I guess so. If he's willing.
That's no longer your concern. Samuel Richards, I am hereby officially demoting you pending a full investigation.
To run a full investigation, I'll need a few other things. Promotion to senior researcher.
Well, I'll see what I can.
You will no longer have Class C privileges or Level 4 clearance.
Appropriate authority and clearance.
Sure, we'll need to discuss that in due.
And if there is a chance that 12 might be a musical anomaly after all.
And you are relieved of your command of MTF ETA 11.
Then I'd like to be appointed acting commander of MTF ETA 11.
Wait, what?
Title, Dreams of Failure, Material Requirements, a mixed choir of 128 performers, SATB, sheet music, nature of composition to be described below, sound-canceling headphones for choir, conductor, and other attendees. 500 milliliters blood plasma from an SCP-1237-1 L-positive individual, type O preferred. SCP Foundation Mobile Task Force ETA-11 Savage Beasts. Foundation Grade Class W Monestics. Abstract. Dreams of Failure is a performance intended to expose members of an SCP Foundation task force to a mild reality-bending effect for the purpose of observing their reaction to belief that their lives and achievements have amounted to nothing, and that they are failures as human beings. This is to be achieved through the application of 3 key components: a choral piece intended to induce unconsciousness, the application of a reality bender's blood in order to induce lucid dreaming, and injection of short-term nestics to seal the effect in the subject's memories. The choral piece is a 45-minute composition for mixed choir, with vocalizations consisting primarily of diphthongs chosen to highlight particular dissonances in the transition between tonal clusters, a range of clicking sounds, and rhotic consonants, interspersed with brief snippets of English language lyrics from popular music expressing themes of failure irrelevance, and futility. Exposure to this sound collage is intended to affect sections of the brain, which should induce unconsciousness and REM sleep in any listeners not wearing hearing protection. Shortly after the induction of unconsciousness, the subjects are to be injected with a mixture of mnestic chemicals and blood plasma, acquired from a person possessing the ability to alter reality via lucid dreaming. This injection, coupled with the ongoing choral performance, should induce the subjects to experience vivid dreams about real or imagined personal failures, while the reality-altering effects induced by the cocktail will not be of sufficient force to affect the real world. The end result will be that the subjects should believe that their dreams are accurate memories of real life, and the mnestic component should ensure that the memory of the dream is not lost upon awakening. Upon conclusion of the choral piece, all performers should evacuate the performance site within 15 minutes, as subjects should begin to awaken around that time. Internal sources within the Foundation are to acquire copies of any after-action reports filed by the subjects, and any diaries or video sound recordings made by them regarding their experience and their memories, which are to be considered part of the piece and are to be made available for viewing at the exhibition. Intent. The Portland outbreak was the closest brush I've ever had with real and total failure. I'm not sure how long it had been floating around before I caught it off that band that inexplicably showed up at the jazz club and was allowed to play Rush for 45 minutes. But I've never been quite the same since. My lifelong dreams of conducting and composing for the human voice went out the window. All I wanted to do was share the music of Rush with as many people as I could. The very next day, we had practice and I threw out the sheet music and started teaching the choir the lyrics to Bastille Day. We nearly had it down before the Foundation quarantined the town and started doping everybody up. Things went back to normal after that, mostly. People didn't talk about Rush the way they did during the outbreak, or about the outbreak at all, as if it had never happened. I'm not sure I got the dose of drugs I was supposed to, though. Maybe they didn't give me enough. Maybe I'm naturally resistant to whatever it was they dosed everyone else with. I remember almost all of it. The way the music swept through the town, the way all other forms of art just felt irrelevant. I don't feel the urge to cover Rush like I used to, but it's still there nagging at the back of my mind, like an itch needing to be scratched. I can't help but marvel at how close my career, my calling, came to being over if I'd let that urge take control. My goal since then has been to explore the nature of failure through my music. Ever since I became part of this organization, I've been learning more and more about that foundation that stopped the outbreak, the tools they use, and the individuals who lead the quarantine. And amongst them, I met Zoe and my life changed. I won't bore you with the details of our interactions over the years. As enemies, rivals, grudging allies, I would have told her I loved her if it wouldn't have compromised both of us. I learned so much from her over the years. And then, as my dreams had almost been plucked from me in Portland, they were plucked from me again when an accident of genetics took her from us. Her comrades in that squad, the ones that intervened in Portland, had struck me as being so confident, so sure of themselves, so capable. What would it be like if I turned my artistic efforts in the direction of their failures as human beings? And what if, instead of just describing it to them, I could make them experience it, feel the way I had felt after Portland, the way I felt after Zoe died, and document every aspect of it? Would that not vindicate my fight against the urge in my head to give up everything and start a shitty cover band? I have dedicated my career to the study of failure. Perhaps, through illustrating their failure, I can find success. I like it here. I always liked the little pockets of forest left over between cities, the places where it wasn't worth anyone's time to level the ground or log the trees. It's not exactly the wilderness, but it's peaceful enough to give you the feeling, and there probably aren't bears. Since my eardrums got busted, of course, it wasn't the same. The sunlight and shadows were the same, but half the quietness of the woods is actually the little sounds of leaves and twigs and maybe water. Just enough noise to make you feel like there's hardly any. Sometimes people ask me, with those long, pitying faces, how I can live without music or voices. But I think it's that not silence that I miss the most. When we secured this place back in 03, and the others told me how the sound was baffled almost out of existence, I figured, hey, everyone hears the same nothing here. I'm not missing anything. I guess I was pissed off at Mace for a while when we found he'd brought Smith here. Who the hell did he think he was? What gave him the right? But whenever I had some time off in the area, I would come up here and sit, and it started to make sense. Nowhere safer in the world. Zhao's saying something. The others are looking at her like they can almost hear her. Dee rolls her eyes and waves impatiently at the area. Zhao sighs and starts signing instead. Any ideas? I think it's pretty obvious, Richard signs. Maybe it's just a visit. He made this place for her. I'm not surprised he can't keep away. Dee and Zhao nod, but something's bugging me. Something I've forgotten. It's happening more often than I'd like these days. I should know why this is important, but it's jammed in a crevice in my head, and I can't dig it out. Up the hill, and I can feel years of dead leaves crunch under my feet. Can't remember that sound anymore either, but half of it comes through the soles of your shoes anyway. Speech to text scrolls down my HUD as Dee grumbles about the hill, but I tune it out as usual. I find the right vantage point behind a tree leaning back from the crown. From there, I can see moving undergrowth in 3 directions where my teammates are coming, and one sorry-looking old man, no older than me, with a gun shoved in his belt, standing in a shaft of afternoon's last sunlight like he planned it. Knowing him, he probably did. There's an older iPod and a pair of portable speakers sitting next to the cairn he left for specialist Zoe Smith, and a hole in the ground just before them, and a tarnished silver urn overturned, a white sheet over the spilled contents. I hoped they would send you, Charles May signs to me. I hoped I wouldn't find you, I respond. Haven't you done enough to her? Not yet. The iPod screen shows something's playing. Of course, no one else can hear it either. I flip on the HUD zoom function to read the screen. It's safe for us. The sound waves won't travel far enough, but it'll work for her. 2402, I say out loud. It feels hoarse, and for a moment I'm not sure if the software's picked it up properly, but then I see Richards' face through branches of red leaves, across the clearing about 1 o'clock. He looks, I don't know what that look is, but he damn sure knows what's happening. He's trying to bring her back. She knew this song before. May smiles. I'll teach it to her again. The white sheet ripples a little. The leaves aren't moving. I thought all I could do was give her peace. I should have known it wasn't enough. I won't fail her again. He must see how I'm watching over his shoulder because he turns and pulls his gun on Richards. From the way his head moves, I think he must be talking. Good luck with that. Richards can't lip read for shit. And then Zhao just walks out of the bushes at my 3. Her hands are empty, and it's hard to tell through the glare on her visor, but I think she might be crying. What does she think she's doing? It started going downhill when she left, she signs to Richards. It fell apart when she died. We need her back. Oh, we can't just come out of the woods with a dead colleague, Richards signs, but I can definitely read that expression. That's please talk me into this, if I ever saw it. We're facing armed resistance, Zhao signs. No alternative. If we can't stop him, she and Smith were close. For me, she was the kind of friend you make it work. You're glad to see them there, but nothing follows you home. I felt it more when she went on leave than when she died. But that doesn't mean Zhao is wrong, does it? Maybe we never had Editin's cachet, but we did lose something, and it wasn't just a skill set or someone to spend coffee break with. She was the heart, or maybe the spine, something you can't replace. Mace looks from Richards to Zhao, then smiles and tucks his gun back into his belt. We can all go back, he signs. I lost something too when she died. Don't we all want another chance to fix our old failures? Sure, don't we all? If it were that easy. But what if it is? What if this is all it takes, and you really can go back? Richard stands upright all of a sudden. Failure, he signs, and his hands are trembling. Paris, and the song at the party. The memory I was digging at suddenly tumbles out. Decades ago, we got called out to some new devenus magnifique. It must have been the 84, because the organizers wanted us to mop up after this pretentious little shit Smith kept running into. Someone who kept harping on how everybody around him was a failure, except for him, of course. And this time, he'd written some interminable Pomo requiem that turned half the anacoustic enthusiasts in Europe into screaming neurotics, because of the nightmares. I was wondering when you would figure it out, Mace signs, looking at once smug and disappointed. Consider yourselves lucky. My original plans for that piece were far more elaborate. Richards looks stunned. He's saying something to himself, but I can't quite catch it. I make a move toward the iPod, which has just kept on playing while we debate. They burned her body to ashes and laid her in an unmarked grave, and suddenly I'm glad for that sheet. How long now before those ashes swell into blackened meat and reeking rendered fat, wrapping around unshattered bones, slick with jellied blood? Zhao stops me. I try to pull away, but she's got her fingers dug deep into my arm, and she's not letting go. She would have known right away, Mace signs. She wouldn't have forgotten me. No one will forget me anymore. She fought it! Zhao shouts silently at me, shaking my arm to make me look. Her face is grotesque behind the visor, wrenched with desperation, streaked with tears and with colored lights from the HUD. She wanted to live. The Foundation could have saved her. She begged them to save her. There's a dozen skips that could have done it, but they let her die. Yeah, she fought it. It chewed up her belly and bred in her bones, and still the doctors tried to burn it out. She wouldn't let them stop. They drowned her in poison, and she still called for more. Last time I saw her, she was yellow as old linoleum, skin hanging loose even on her skull. She was so thin. And that's where she'd wake into life, too weak to scream. You have to give her this chance. This is what she would have wanted. You know it is. You know it. Yeah, I know it. I don't care. I don't want it. I grab a noisemaker off my belt. 110 dB, 30 seconds. More than enough. Zhao tries for it. She misses. Mace turns around just in time to see the sonic grenade land dead center on the sheet. He pulls his gun on me but doesn't fire. He knows it's too late. The air ignites around us. There's no way this many butterflies could live in this small an area, but here they all are anyway. The guards Mace created to defend her. He was right the first time. She didn't belong in an unmarked grave. She belongs here, safe, at rest after that last terrible fight, and all the ones that went before, not dragged backward out of an ugly lingering death, just because sometimes it's hard to let go. As the monarchs swarm her grave, I can see tiny jewel-green pellets dropping out of the air. 2402's only defense, shrink them back into the chrysalis. It won't be enough. I can feel the pressure shift against my poor blown-out eardrums, and I know the silence has won. Mace is screaming, pulling at his hair. Gun's still in your hand, buddy. Bad idea. Better let me have that so you don't hurt yourself. It's probably not necessary to hit him in the face, too, but I can't for the life of me see why I shouldn't. Zhao and Richards come out of cover, looking poleaxed, the both of them, whether from sensory deprivation or something else I can't tell. Dee scrambles up from my left a few seconds later. How much of this she's put together is anybody's guess, but she looks approving, satisfied, anyway. A good day's work. She puts the restraints on Mace, none too gently, and gives me the thumbs up. I pick my way through the tremor of orange and black wings to recover the iPod and its speakers. When I turn back, Zhao is looking into the ragged grave, where no butterflies have landed. I don't think she meant for me to see her face. Take a deep breath, Stella. Breathe. Whenever you're ready, you may begin. Zeekdon watched as his student masterfully performed, her fingers gliding and the bow striking the strings with intensity. Years of practice had paid off, and he felt that she had finally grown into the young, confident player he imagined she would be. It was astonishing. The way her posture was perfected, how she struck the strings without a single moment of self-doubt, how deftly she handled sudden transitions and tempo. It was as if she was a lifelong master. At the end of the piece, his most prized student looked up at him. How did I do? She seemed hesitant, shaking a bit and catching her breath. You did absolutely wonderful. You handled that like a champion. Zeke smiled and patted her head, as Stella quickly regained confidence and beamed back up at him. Thank you so much. Do you think I'm ready to perform for next week, Mr. Don? Stella asked, her eyes wide. The door opened as a woman looked in, smiling at the two and waving. They both waved back. You're more than ready. I'd keep practicing. Next week is our last lesson before the competition. Be sure to meet me at your school the next day so I can wish you good luck, okay? Stella nodded as she started to pack up to leave. The woman walked over to them, situating herself near her daughter and waiting. Same amount as usual? She asked. Yep, though just for you, Mary. I'll let you pay half at $45, Zeke confidently quipped, a sly smile growing on his face. A few seconds of silence hung between them before Mary handed him $90. His smile dropped for a bit as he took the money and stuffed it in his pockets. Are you still all right with getting dinner tonight? It's not often I'm able to have a free night with you. The look she gave him made his smile drop. Mary moved much closer to Zeke, dropping her voice down to a whisper. Not here, Zeke. We've had this talk before. At least one last date tonight? It would be nice to go out on amicable terms, right? A bit more silence before Mary backed up a bit and sighed. Sure, Harry and Mason's? Yes, ma'am. But this is it, she exclaimed sternly before heading by the door where Stella had headed. She waved to Zeke, smiling. See you next week, Mr. Don, Stella yelled as Zeke smiled and waved back. See you next week. Zeke replied, as he immediately started to cut off all emotional ties. The lights flashed on when D7294 entered the testing area, and he covered his eyes to shield them from most of the brightness. It was a sensation he could never get used to in testing, and it was easily the worst part of any day. The intercom switched on, with that horrendous buzzing noise adding to the displeasure. Test number 14, subject D7294. Date is September 23, 2013. Researcher Tyler Jensen and Dr. Tyrone Hardy, observing. D7294. Please have a seat in the chair directly in front of the mannequin, SCP-847, and converse with it. You may also lightly interact with it. Do not damage the item. Testing shall last no longer than 20 minutes. Testing begins now. The intercom switched off, and D7294 took a good look at the object in the room. The mannequin, it looked decrepit, worn down, horrendous. It had hair on it, clothes, all its body parts, but even just sitting in the chair on the other side of the room, he could tell how pitiful it looked. He hadn't felt this disgusted, looking at something resembling a woman in a long time. 20 minutes to interact with an ugly mannequin like this would feel like an eternity. So he sat down in the chair and started to observe. It shuddered. 7294 looked taken aback, raising an eyebrow in surprise. Oh, it wasn't the most shocking or grotesque display he saw since being a D-class, but it was repulsive in its own right. As he watched, it made small sudden adjustments to its position and suggestive moaning noises. It looked like a puppet being pulled on its strings. He could only watch in fascination as it kept doing this, as if it was inviting him, wanting him to play. He looked her over, the length of her body, the unmoving, as far as he could tell, lips, the parts of the body so obviously meant for him to observe. 10 minutes passed like this, and the intercom buzzed. D7294, if you refuse to participate in testing. I'm watching, he interrupted sharply. Carry on then. It was then that the mannequin stood up, gasping and leaning in his direction, and he felt his heart soar. Harry and Mason's was bustling with activity that summer night, as waiters and waitresses scrambled to serve the tourists eating there, and bartenders went to satiate the rush of patrons grabbing a drink. Mary was staring down at her plate, eating as Zeke looked at her face, attempting to study her and break the ice between them. Aside from placing their order, they had not spoken once since being sat. So, Mary, she didn't respond. Though her eyes looked up for a second to glance at him, she made no effort to give further attention. Look, I know you don't want to keep dating me, but don't I at least deserve some more time to teach your daughter? Stella is a very lovely student, and with more practice under her belt, she could do more than win boring school competitions. How old is she, Zeke? Huh? Well, his response hung in the air. 13. You've been teaching her for 4 years, and you don't even remember how old she is. Well, age isn't important when you're training to become a world-class musician. Mary looked even less amused. For fuck's sake, you don't think anything else of her. I've never been anything to you either, except for some object of worth. Though she kept her voice down while arguing, her mannerisms started to draw attention to the two of them. For the first time in years, he felt slightly put off. After a minute of silence, Mary spoke up again. We're moving after her competition, and I'm making sure you don't ever come near us again. More silence passed, and Zeke poked at his food, looking up every once in a while to see if anyone was still paying attention to the both of them. Each second passed by seemed a month's worth. A waiter came by and collected Mary's plate as she finished up her meal. I'll see you next week then? Mary didn't respond as she grabbed her purse and walked outside back to her car. Zeke sighed as he started to eat his food. The way the mannequin headed over to where 7294 was sitting was erratic, its movements making little sense for what it tried to do. Dragging its plastic legs, shambling over to him, it almost set even him on edge. Repulsion rose up in him, but as it got near him, he wondered. He stood up, leaning over it, trying to see if he could intimidate it. It stopped and froze. You're adorable, aren't you? He muttered, grabbing its arm and moving it around. It made more suggestive noises, while 7294 played with it. You know what I want, you know what you want, what you were made for. He let go and walked around behind it, grabbing various body parts to move around and pose. Can you really do anything else besides whimper and moan? Is even that too much for you to do? He ran a hand across its eyes, shuddering at how real they felt. Real eyes. Porcelain skin. Your hands feel like cheaper than everywhere else. You couldn't ever attract a male like this, could you, you dumb animal? It continued making sounds, this time sounding vaguely fearful. 72, 94 let go and walked back to its front, feeling its hands and fingers. Beg for me? It continued making the same sounds. Make some actual unique sounds this time. Nothing had changed. You can't even serve the one purpose you were made for, can you? Do you feel anything? No response except for the same sounds. What will change? He broke off a finger. Nothing. Useless. He could immediately, faintly hear the sounds of guards rushing towards the testing chamber. As he let go and backed away, the mannequin erratically jerking towards his position. The intercom buzzed. D7294. You were instructed not to damage the item. Testing is over. The guards opened the door and started to forcefully drag him out. He didn't resist, continuing to stare at the mannequin until the doors closed. He sighed, feeling slight disappointment mixed with a rush of thrill. 50 meters away from the area, heading towards an interview room, he could hear screaming and the sound of something breaking. He grinned and felt warmth in his head. Suspect's name released in Tallahassee Double Murder by Jesse Soren, May 1st, 2013, 10:36 p.m. Tallahassee police have announced that Zeke Don was the suspect arrested at 7 p.m. last Saturday for the killing of Mary Mitchell, 34, and Stella Mitchell, 13. Police were called to investigate a disturbance at a Tallahassee residence, where they found Don, 37, covered in blood as he dug holes outside. Responding officers found Mary and Stella Mitchell's bodies in the living room. Officials found parts of 5 to 8 more partly decomposed bodies in the basement, kitchen, and bedroom of Don's home. The additional victims have not yet been identified. While preliminary investigation had suggested that the Mitchells were killed by gunshot wounds, an autopsy found that both died of blunt trauma several hours after being shot, as well as having been mutilated for an extended time after death. Don is being held without bail, accused of at least 7 first-degree murders. Prosecutors say he will not be charged until the number of victims can be determined. Officials added that investigation is continuing and more details will be released in the coming weeks. Related articles. Locals remember the Mitchells. Their charity will never be forgotten. Protests surrounding the death penalty. 72, 94 laid in his bed that night, absent-mindedly thinking of the encounter earlier with the mannequin. It was the first real sense of enjoyment he had gotten in months, although from how the researchers had talked to him, he had a distinct feeling he wouldn't be returning to see it again. It was fun playing with it while he could, at least. The memory of his fun was burned into his mind to enjoy for nights forwards. He rolled, looking up at the ceiling, sighing. He stuck out his thumb and index fingers to resemble a tweezer and started plucking at nothing, humming about Mary's little lamb, her fleece as white as snow. "Mike, look out!" yelled Zhao. The brass city was collapsing around them. Mike slammed to a stop as an enormous bell crashed to the ground in front of him. "The players must be, losing precision," he panted. "Why did they, use a brass band?" Zhao yanked him onto the pavement as the Drumskin Street tore open. "Trust me," she said. "You don't want to be here when it's catgut and piano wire." Lifting a streak of silver-gray hair back from her temples, Zhao spoke into her headpiece. "H, where are you? We need to get out." 4 blocks away, Agent Hennessy looked past the text on his visor at the massive beast a few feet from him. Its powerful metallic legs were curled into a crouch, valves pulsing rhythmically. It turned its head back and forth, and its cymbal jaws opened, emitting a long horn note of challenge. If he ran, if he made any noise, it would sense him. His right hand pressed to the communicator at his belt, trying to move as little as possible. At 333C, stuck, you go. A nearby flute tower crumbled and fell, scattering nickel-silver keys across the road. SCP-333C sprang instinctively towards the noise, turning its back on Hennessy. He ran. Carter and Zhao were running too, desperately trying to avoid the rain of bronze and steel debris. Ahead, Mike could see the performance hall, the exit. As they reached the doorway, he turned back to look for Hennessy. The streets were full of twisted metal, but empty of life. The doorframe shook as another building fell. Zhao was shouting into her headset. "H, please, tell us where you are." Hiding, too far. "Where? We'll find you." Even as Zhao said it, they heard the bellowing horn again. "No, get out. Tell them stop playing." The shaking was getting worse. A door-sized reed slid from the hall's roof and thudded into the pavement in front of them like a guillotine. "If they stop playing, you'll die," said Zhao, frantic. "Not dead, stasis!" The howls of the sea were louder now. Mike saw it burst out of a building up the street. It ran towards them, claws tearing through the shining sidewalk. "Zhao, it's coming for the exit. We have to go." Mike grabbed Zhao's arm. She looked at him with pleading eyes. The beast was almost on them. I can't," she said into the headset. Come back for me." They leapt through the doorway. The concert hall was silent, expectant. She looked out, dazzled by the stage lights. If there was an audience out there, it was shrouded in the blackness beyond. Blackness like the mouth of a deep pit, like an open throat ready to... Emma found her focus, bringing herself back. She was wearing a black shirt and trousers, appropriate for a performer, but also reminiscent of her new MTF uniform. She wanted to look to her left, but couldn't manage it. She needed to look professional in front of the darkened hall. Instead, she stole a glance downwards. There was a music stand in front of her, but the score sitting on it seemed blurry. Still, she didn't need it. Behind her, Emma sensed the unseen orchestra as it stretched itself, and then coiled, ready to spring, waiting for the baton's signal. Who was it holding that baton? Emma still could not turn to look. The moment stretched endlessly. The bright stage, the enveloping dark, all on a razor's edge. Emma felt a prickling at the nape of her neck. As the orchestra took off, Emma strained to concentrate on the music. She could hear notes, even the occasional chord, but the full sweep and scope of the work eluded her. What was left were scraps of jangling discord, impossible to piece together. Emma breathed deeply. Her cue was coming. From the corner of her eye, Emma saw the conductor half turn. This was her chance. As the baton flashed down like a lightning strike, Emma spun sharply to look left. The conductor was shrouded in black, darker even than the hall itself. Its face was a pallid carnival mask, featureless but for a leering grin. The eyes were black and empty, and as Emma stared, it loomed closer and larger above her, seeming to fill the hall, to fill the world. And Emma heard it scream. She woke to the sight of Agent Sherry Wilson leaning over her. "Hey, how are you feeling?" came Wilson's calming voice. Eyes adjusting to the lights, Emma looked around the sleep lab, adrenaline still pumping. "Did you see it?" she asked. "Most of it," replied Sherry. "I was in the back of the audience. But it went differently this time, right? You seem to have more control." Emma breathed deliberately, trying to slow her heart. "Yes, I changed my clothes, and I managed to turn." As the dream faded, it was easier to remember why she was doing this. I could even hear the music. Some of it, anyway. I could see them playing, but I didn't hear anything. Sherry scanned through the readings on the touchscreen next to Emma's bed. Of all the members of MTF Omicron Row that Emma had worked with, she seemed the most thorough, the most collected. "This is much better, Emma," she continued. "Good alpha wave levels, and your breathing stayed steady. Just need to work on staying locked in the dream, even when something surprising happens." "Actually, I won't need to worry about waking up," said Emma. "How have the others been going?" Sherry gave an involuntary glance across to the empty beds on the other side of the room. "They're definitely improving. We tried Hennessy, Zhao, and Carter in a few SCP-333 scenarios. The musical city? That's appropriate." Emma smiled and sat up. "They're adapting well to the dream, staying lucid, finding solutions." Sherry sounded genuinely impressed. "Hennessy actually came up with something I hadn't seen anyone try before." "Good." Emma's smile grew determined. "That's very good. I'd like to run the same scenarios, please. When can you schedule me in?" Sherry's look of concern only lasted a fraction of a second, but Emma spotted it. "I'm not sure," said Sherry, folding her arms. "Unless you're fully trained, we normally wouldn't advise more than 3 sessions a week." Emma frowned. "Let's make it tomorrow. I don't have that much time." Agent Sandra D staggered from the tunnel, the ringing in her ears fading. She dropped to one knee, out of breath and trying not to retch. From the corner of her eye, she could see a man step towards her, holding a clipboard and stopwatch. 37 minutes, 19 seconds, said Sergeant Graham Towers of MTF Zeta 9. "Not bad for a first run through the grinder, especially at your..." Dee swung her head up fiercely, but the movement was too sudden. Black spots filled her vision, and she almost collapsed. She waved away the agent's proffered hand and shut her eyes tight. Sergeant Towers had clearly been trained to keep candidates talking after they got through the course. "You never considered joining the Mole Rats, then?" "Wasn't an option at the time," said Dee through gritted teeth. "That's a shame. You did a good job, particularly with the gravitational distortion sections. A tip for the perspective null room, you can often make quicker progress with one or even both eyes closed. Although you got unlucky with your route, hitting that straight after sensory deprivation. Dee had heard enough. Her head was still throbbing, and she lifted herself gingerly into the chair Towers offered. 20 minutes later, she was still sitting there, just outside the exit from Mole Rat Maze, watching the sergeant look anxiously at his watch. "An hour is the limit. I'm going to have to go in," he said, more to himself than to her. Just as he put down his clipboard, there was a noise from the tunnel. Towers raced over as Roger Anderson emerged, slumping to the ground and rolling onto his back. Anderson's chest heaved, and Dee watched as Towers checked his pulse and pupils before grabbing some oxygen from the med pack. Dee stood slowly, making sure she had her balance back, and strolled over to where Roger was lying. He had taken off the oxygen mask, but was still too weak to sit up. Agent Dee brought her boots together with a snap, right next to his head. "So, Anderson, looking forward to being back in the field?" Towers shot her a look. She met his gaze. "Come on, Towers," she said. "Surely he set a new record for the octogenarians?" She spotted the stopwatch, still around Towers' neck. "There you are, Anderson. 59 minutes, 12 seconds. Roger groaned. "Why is it always 12? Emma was starting to get used to meetings in the site director's office. She tried to sit still while Director Aurora walked slowly around his desk to sit across from her. The director unclasped his hands and spread them apart, palms up, clearly a practice gesture. "So, Commander Stark, how is the training going?" He was stalling. Emma knew he had seen the reports. She aimed to keep her voice light. "The team is performing well, generally strong results, considering. We could use a few more members, though. Have you had any luck with recruits?" It wasn't what she had scheduled the meeting for, but it would be a start. Director Aurora was clearly growing accustomed to her newfound directness. He smiled, but she thought she caught a flash of misgiving behind it. "I think I have 2 pieces of good news for you there," he said. "Dr. Bettina Renard is a senior memetics researcher who is joining us from Site 17, and Charla Flores had just been recruited to Cognito Hazards, but her supervisor has gone on medical leave." "That's good," said Emma. "We could use some more specialists. I know exactly what Dr. Renard can start with. I don't suppose they have any musical background?" "Honestly, I'm not sure," replied the director. But they should be with you soon, so you'll be able to find out. We have a D class who I understand is very musical, but I'm not sure you would want him in your squad." Aurora paused. Emma waited. "About your other request," he continued finally. "I can see why you want to do it, but I just don't know if I can authorize." "Sir, with respect, if we're serious about learning more about 12, then I think it's the best way forward. The team will be ready." "Will they?" said Aurora. "I'd like to hear your full risk analysis first." Emma tried to stay calm. "Okay, sir, there are 4 key elements to consider." As she left the room 15 minutes later, Emma realized her hands had been clenched so hard they'd left fingernail marks on her palms. The spare lab room was almost empty as Mike and Hennessy walked in. All of the equipment had been cleared out, leaving just 4 rows of benches and stools, one of which was occupied by a dark-haired young woman, reading. "Hi," said Mike. "You must be Charla." The woman looked up from her text. "Charlie," she said. "That's what my family always called me." "Nice to meet you, Charlie. I'm Mike, and this is H." Mike indicated the smiling Agent Hennessy beside him. "Welcome to ETA 11. "H?" asked Charlie with a quizzical look. "For Hennessy." Mike turned to him, grinning. "Or is it hearing loss? I can never remember." "Hey," said Hennessy loudly. "Turn it down," signed Mike and continued. "H is deaf, as you may have worked out. He can talk, but we try not to let him. Never has anything interesting to say." "I'll give you interesting," signed Hennessy, and then saw Charlie's nonplussed look. "Mike, you're freaking her out. Stop being weird." "What did he say?" Charlie asked, unsure where to direct the question. Mike didn't miss a beat. H was just apologizing for being weird, so it's... Ow! He grabbed the back of his head, where Hennessy had cuffed him playfully. "Okay, I'm sorry, Charlie. I was just messing around with H, but it's not fair when you don't know us. You'll regret ever joining ETA 11. "Oh no, that's okay," said Charlie, settling her hands back down on her book. "To be honest, I'm glad for the change. My last posting, well, it ended a bit strangely. Still, it's been a pretty full-on start. I never knew how much training a task force needed." "Neither did we," Mike laughed. "Did you do the mole rat maze yet?" "God, yes, that was ridiculous. I couldn't..." Charlie cut off as the door of the lab opened and a researcher walked in. She was slightly stiff, as if uncertain she was in the right room. She carried a stack of what looked like VR goggles, held in place with her chin. Is this Mobile Task Force ETA-11? Her voice had the slightest hint of a European accent. This is all of you. There is no one else? You saw Zhao, Sandra, and Roger on Tuesday, right? Mike replied. So, yeah, apart from Emma, that's all of us. Mike waited for a response, eventually wilting in the woman's stare. We're kind of a small MTF, he added. The woman hesitated, lips pursed, before putting the sets of goggles on the bench with a half sigh. Okay, my name is Dr. Renard, Senior Memetics Liaison to ETA-11. She pushed a few graying hairs back from her face. I will be running your memetic resistance tests today. More tests? Signed Hennessy wearily. Dr. Renard handed out the goggles and gave them each an electronic grip topped with a button. On these headsets, you will experience typical task force activities in a range of environments. When you perceive danger or determine that a defensive action is required, you are to press the button on your grip. The presentation includes a series of perception-altering stimuli, which I have myself designed. These are quite safe, but will test your memetic resistance on various measures: reduced attention span, slower reaction times, impaired judgment, and fine motor control. So it's like a game then? Asked Charlie. It is a test, replied Dr. Renard with a curt nod. You will be scored for both speed and accuracy in recognizing and responding to legitimate threats. Can you tell us the score to beat? Asked Mike, pulling the goggles onto his head. I mean, from Tuesday. Dr. Renard paused. It is rather interesting, actually. Most of the team were in the average range, but Agent D was in the 95th percentile across all measures. Makes sense, Mike chirped. After the number of times she tested. Ow. Again, H. Hennessy scowled at Mike, who looked chastened. I mean, I guess Agent D has had a lot of exposure to mind-altering anomalies. DH, do you all have letters? Charlie pushed the goggles up from her eyes to ask. Oh, no, D is definitely her name, said Mike hurriedly. Like John D? Cool. I almost transferred to alchemical studies, said Charlie. Dr. Renard coughed. If you are all now ready, shall we get on with the test? She flicked a switch on a central console as they lowered their goggles and tightened the straps. The last thing Mike heard before the headphones kicked in was Hennessy's voice counting down from 100 in multiples of 7. 4 days later, the lab was full again, with the whole of ETA-11 in attendance. Zhao and Mike were sitting with Charlie, laughing at something on her phone. Behind them, Roger Anderson and Dr. Renard were deep in debate. Agent D lounged in the back corner chatting to Hennessy, who was struggling to sign with a half-eaten sandwich in one hand. They looked up as the door opened and Emma came in. Agent Zhao jumped from her chair and stood, and the others joined her, with the exception of D, who looked coolly from the back of the room. That's not necessary, guys, said Emma, blushing slightly and waving them to sit again. As they were doing so, another man entered. He was mid-50s, short and lean, with bushy gray hair and a thin beard. He walked into the room as if expecting it to lunge forward and swallow him. Charlie was the only one to recognize him, whispering to Mike, "Oh my God, do you know who—" She was interrupted by Emma, whose voice betrayed both her discomfort with giving speeches and the feeling that she was obliged to give one. I know you've been wondering why we've been training so hard, and I'm sorry that I haven't been able to tell you yet. The truth is, I've only just received approval from the site director to let you know our next mission. Since SCP-012 was stolen, we've had almost no clear leads. Ex-Commander Richards has no memory of where he hid the score. The Foundation has been unable to track Dr. Fersen or find out who his associates are, and we know so little about the anomaly itself. But we have one source of information, and I intend to pursue it. Emma looked at the expectant faces of the MTF, her MTF. Zhao gave her a brief smile of support. She continued, "That's the reason for all of the training so far, and I'm afraid there's more to come. Dealing with spatial anomalies, memetic resistance, lucid dreaming, we're going to need all of that." They had started to understand, thought Emma. D had come off the back wall and was sitting straight. Roger was pushing his glasses up over widened eyes. Dr. Renard was nodding. Emma saw Mike turn to Charla in sudden realization. So, now that we have official approval, there's someone we need to speak with. MTF ATA-11, this is Dr. Calixto Narvaez. We're going to Alagada. Charla Flores sat on the changing room bench, slowly folding a spare uniform. It was brand new and spotless, a far cry from her old lab coat with its familiar stains of iodine and bleach. What new stains would she acquire? She shook off the reverie as Dr. Renard walked in. The older woman dropped a handful of Memetics VR headsets into her locker with a clatter and gave an irritated sigh. "Is everything okay?" ventured Charla. "How can you ask such a thing?" Dr. Renard looked genuinely shocked. "The situation is unworkable, intolerable. It is a personal insult." She sat down hard on the same bench as Charla, who realized that she had become a de facto confidant. Presumably that was through a shortage of options. She had seen how prickly the Memetics researcher had been in her interactions with other team members. Charla tried a conciliatory approach. "They're a little different to other MTFs, I know, but..." "Different?" Dr. Renard's tone was scoffing. "They are entirely unprofessional. For a Memetics consultant, Agent Anderson has no postgraduate qualifications in his subject, and that D-woman seems to have no schooling whatsoever. One of their agents is an old deaf man, and apart from Zhao, the rest are inexperienced children." Charla looked stung. Dr. Renard waved her hand hurriedly. "I do not include you in this, my dear. We are both in the same position, brought into this job on false conditions, unwillingly. If you wish, I could easily include you in my application for reassignment." "Reassignment?" Charla hadn't remotely considered it. "No, leaving my last posting was hard enough. Besides, everyone here seems so, well, so normal and nice. Would you go back to your last team?" "No, sadly that would not be possible," said Reynard, stiffening. "I would certainly find something else. But you would prefer to stay? You are not concerned by the danger of this misguided excursion? This Dr. Narvaez is surely a madman." This sparked Charla to a more spirited response. "Dr. Narvaez is an expert in perception-altering and dimensional anomalies, one of the most decorated in the Foundation. He has seen things beyond any of our experience. How much of what Dr. Narvaez has seen is real, and how much is inside his head?" Dr. Renard retorted. "I doubt even he knows for sure. Trusting such a man is folly. I trust the facts. The last time anyone went to this place, 11 agents died." "Of course this is dangerous," said Charla. "All MTFs face dangers, and we have been training for them. Besides, no one was hurt either time Dr. Narvaez went to Alagada." Dr. Renard gave a dark look. "But Dr. Narvaez isn't going to Alagada this time. Remember that. It will just be the MTF, on its own." She stood, closing her locker door firmly, and left the room without saying more. Charla watched her leave, then looked back down at her uniform. Just the MTF. Her MTF now. In the site cafeteria, Mike and Zhao found a quiet table. Mike had hardly looked at Zhao on the walk over, and she waited quietly while he busied himself with his food for a few minutes. "It's not that I'm scared of going," he said finally. "I just don't know whether it makes sense, you know? Is it even really Emma's idea? She's been meeting so often with the site director." "I think that the commander knows her own mind," said Zhao. "She was the one who set up the training. She brought in Dr. Narvaez." Mike looked up from over his mashed potato. "And she didn't even tell you what she was planning?" "No." Zhao sounded contemplative. "But doesn't she have to? I mean, your views are important. You're our lieutenant." "And Emma is the commander," replied Zhao, the words dropping like a lead weight on the conversation. "Sorry," said Mike, abashed. "Helen, I didn't mean... I think you would have made a great commander. Once Richards, well, you know." That brought an ironic smile back to Zhao's face. "No, I wouldn't," she said. "I'm not cut out for it. I talked about it with Richards back when he first appointed me. And anyway, I've never wanted to. Some people are natural leaders, and some are better at being second in command. I make sure the plans get executed, keep an eye on the team. It's what I'm good at. I don't need anything else." "You are good at it." "Suck up," said Zhao with a grin. Mike grinned too, and they ate for a while before his thoughts brought him full circle. "It's just going to Alagada, you know? You should have heard what 92 said about it. He sounded really scared. It doesn't seem like something that the commander, the ex-commander I mean, would do." Zhao lowered her glass of water and raised an eyebrow. "I'm not so sure. You've only known Richards for a little while. I've worked with him since back when we were Hear No Evil. Things were different then." "I hope that he's okay," said Mike. "I know I shouldn't, but..." "I know what you mean," Zhao replied. "Although I'm more worried about Emma. It's a huge responsibility, all those decisions. And she's still so young." "Emma is pretty tough," Mike cocked his head. "And she has you to support her." He was aiming for another grin, but Zhao just chewed absently, brows furrowed. They both ate on in silence. The guard opened the door to the tiny visitor's room, and Emma walked in, taking a seat on one side of the glass partition. The chair on the other side was empty. Emma waited, thinking about what she wanted to ask, mind racing. She pulled at the collar of her uniform jacket. This was probably her last opportunity before the mission. She needed every edge she could get. Finally, a buzzer sounded, and the door on the other side opened. In walked ex-Commander Samuel Richards. He looked older than she remembered, and thinner. He folded his tall frame down into the seat opposite. If he was surprised to see her there, he didn't show it. He said nothing. Emma knew he wouldn't be interested in small talk. "They have your ethics committee hearing scheduled for a month from now," she said. "I presume they told you?" Richards nodded slowly. "And have you remembered anything?" She knew that wasn't how amnestics worked, but it was worth trying. The man behind the glass was impassive. "You know what their decision will be if you don't help them. Discharge, full amnesticization and monitoring, dishonor. You can't want that, not after your career." "My career isn't important," Richard sounded hoarse. "But to be labeled a traitor to the Foundation." "I was protecting the Foundation," snapped Richards. His jaw quivered with coiled tension. Emma could sense an opening. "I believe you," she said. "I don't know whether the committee will, but I understand why you took O12. Tell me something, anything you can, and I can help you." "You?" Richard stared hard at her. "Yes. I know what Fersen is like. I worked with him. And that's exactly why I don't trust you," Richards replied, folding his arms. "You worked on O12. You could easily have been corrupted by it." His gaze darkened. "For all I know, you could be working with Fersen, trying to recover it for him, or trying to take it for yourself," says the man locked up for doing exactly that. Emma's blood was up, her voice sharp. "I'm the only one who could be trusted to keep it safe." The only one? Now it was Emma's gaze that burned at the glass between them. "And yet, you have an accomplice." At that, Richards looked genuinely shocked. "What?" "Maybe not at the time you stole O12, but definitely since," continued Emma. "You walk in here to see me wearing the insignia of your MTF, wearing the commander's stripes you used to wear. And you don't react at all. You already knew. Someone has been feeding you information." She knew that if Richards hadn't lied very well, he could certainly stonewall. He said nothing. Emma berated herself for losing her temper. It had felt good to get a reaction from him, but it meant he wouldn't answer any more questions. Emma stood up to leave, turning back from the door to add, "If you change your mind about helping me, let me know. Or I guess I could just ask your conspirator." As she walked back along the hall, she wondered who it was. Probably D. "I don't trust that bitch." The forend of the pump-action shotgun slid back into place with a pronounced clack. Hennessy looked over mildly from where he had been checking the subsonic stun grenades. "Careful, D. That's our commander you're talking about," he signed. "Not my commander," D responded with a snort. She put the empty weapon back on the rack and picked up the next to check the mechanism. "It's what she did to the commander that means I don't trust her." What she did? Richards admitted that he stole O12. And she ratted him out for it. D wasn't brooking any argument. Hennessy raised both white eyebrows. "She worked it out, you mean?" Mace was the rat. He looked down at the back of his right hand for a second, absently curling the fingers into a fist. "Since when are you her #1 fan?" "Hardly." Hennessy laughed. "That's probably reserved for Mike. Anyway, you've only known one commander for the beasts. Stark won't be the worst we've had." Wiping the dust from the noise amplification rig, D leaned forward. "I don't know if you noticed, but she's a damn slave driver." Hennessy raised his hands to tease D for complaining about a little work, but thought the better of it. Not when she was in this mood. He made do with a shrug. "You can't be that relaxed," she said. "Stark is taking us into a spatial anomaly full of hostiles. The task force isn't equipped for that. We've done okay in the field so far." "Jesus, on Earth!" D slapped the side of the speaker she was cleaning. "Against an old man and some shitty robots. Have you read the files about Alagata? It's just about knowing what to look out for. Where's your sense of adventure?" He signed back. D strode around the low shelf, standing right in Hennessy's face. "Bullshit! That's bullshit, H, and you know it. I've been here more than 20 years, and you never wanted adventure." The old man didn't move, didn't reply. "What's wrong with you these days?" D continued. "You've changed, H. Maybe the others don't see it, but you can't fool me. You used to be a professional." Hennessy started to respond, but D cut him off. "You don't care anymore. You sit around being a smartass, joking with Mike instead of helping the commander, and you go rushing into danger like a goddamn cowboy. You don't respect the rules, you don't give a shit about the safety of your team, and you sure as hell don't care about your own. Sudden understanding sucked away Dee's breath. H, tell me you aren't. Tell me that's not why you... H. For a second, she looked at Hennessy, imploring him for a denial. He had none. All Dee's anger returned at once. Well, fuck you then. You want to die? Do it on your own time. Don't put me at risk. By the time he had started to reply, she had turned away and was storming out. Hennessy couldn't lip-read her final retort. I'm sure your precious new commander would be happy to get you killed. He picked up the dust cloth from the floor and went back to work. It was getting late. Roger Anderson strode the deserted corridors of the site, barely paying attention to his surroundings. He had been taken off his archives shifts, but was yet to move into the MTF quarters, and the walks were hell on his joints. But he knew he wouldn't sleep until he had shared what he had learned. Before he knew it, he found himself outside the door to the ETA 11 commander's office. He could see light seeping from the threshold. He wasn't surprised to see Emma was still working. He knocked twice and came in. Commander, I need to talk to you about Dr. Reynard. I was looking at her history and... Roger cut off in shock. Emma was at her desk, crying. He took a step backwards. I'm so sorry for barging in, Em. Commander, he stuttered. No, it's okay, Roger. Don't leave. She wiped her eyes. What did you want? That's not important, said Roger, walking around the desk. Are you all right? I don't think I can do this. Emma sounded desperate. Any of it? Roger felt alarm and pity and a strange kind of relief. Emma, you're doing fine. You don't understand, she replied, shaking her head. I say these things and make these plans, but all the time, everything feels out of control. I don't belong here. What am I doing? The right thing. You have uncovered more about O12 in the past few weeks than in years of study. You've pulled this MTF into shape. Hell, I even did a sit-up yesterday. He laughed weakly to match the joke. How do I know I'm making the right decisions? Roger gave a taut smile, which he hoped was encouraging. You can't, not for sure. You just do your homework, take advice from the right people, and do your best. But I could be putting the squad in danger, said Emma, although her voice sounded more certain now. If danger is what the task requires, then that is what we've signed up to. I've been here a long time, and it never gets any easier to put people at risk. When you do find it easy, that's when I'll worry. Emma straightened her hair, pulling herself together, becoming the commander again. So I take advice from the right people. What's your advice? Roger considered bringing up Dr. Reynard and decided against it. Emma had enough on her plate. He contented himself with a final thought on his way out the door. My advice is, don't put too much trust in the Foundation. I've seen a lot, and it's taught me that when a place gets too used to keeping secrets, you can't ever know for sure what they're hiding. The voice on the other end of the line was insistent. What are your concerns? I'm not sure whether she represents a liability or an asset. Is she a risk to the mission? No, I don't think so, but there are other risks. We can take care of them, Director Aurora. You should concentrate on your role. I understand. Site Director Aurora put down the phone and turned his stereo back on. The comforting voices of Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald filled his office. Elsewhere, the opening strains of LadyKatie's Requiem stole out from hidden speakers in the darkened warehouse. Stuart Ferson, once of the Foundation, bathed in the music and was borne upwards upon it. He knew it well, but hearing it again he felt new purpose in the twisting voices. That purpose was part of him too, and his fellow thieves, elsewhere in the building, preparing in their own ways. They were so different from him, yet alike, drawn together like singers joining the song. Ferson closed his eyes, breathing deeply as the music swelled. And then at once, all sound fell into a chasm of silence. Ferson opened his eyes and saw the figure before him. It was robed and masked, towering in the dim light. When it spoke, Ferson felt he could hear the echoes of cawing crows. You have the baton. It was a demand. Ferson gave an almost instinctive bow. Yes. He pulled it from the bag at his feet, passing it to a black-gloved hand. Ferson shivered at the touch. The baton disappeared within the flowing robes. More is expected. Yes, my patron. Ferson's understanding was instinctive too. We are ready. But the Foundation has grown soft, said the figure, implacable. It cannot prevent the tide of history now it has turned. Its actions are unimportant. We will bring the Saints' return. You must find the score. Ferson looked pained. The score is lost, stolen from us. The Foundation cannot find it, and neither can we. The The black shape before him seemed to grow larger. Not that score, the others. Only 2 are required, and you will find them. Where, my master? Fersen asked hungrily. Tune your instruments. Assemble the orchestra. You will go to Alagada.
Can you show me the way to Alagada? No one on earth seems to know.
Blood. It is always blood. I stopped trying to understand why long ago. Even now, I hear it, hungry for more. I want nothing more than to satisfy that urge, as if it were my own. But I must remain practical. I must put on some music and figure out a plan. I must ensure the blood is never my own. I've always liked Paul Hindemith's symphony in B-flat. There's something enchanting about it. The lyrical solos in the first movement, the surprisingly melodic atonality, the way the theme of movement 1 comes back at the end of the piece. Something comforting in the way that familiarity comes back, right when you least expect it. I listen to it in moments when I need to keep a cool head. Like right now. There are impossible tasks, and then there's finding a way to Alagada. It's been done before, so we know it's possible, but we're not sure how exactly it was done. I know just enough about how to open our way, rather, the Foundation's way, to know that the creation of it was a much more complex process. But my patron has demanded it, so I must find a way to get there.
For the king, he is hosting a royal gala, and I have been invited to go.
As the third movement begins, I consider my options. I could try to sneak in through the Foundation's way. I already know how to open it. I know what to expect on the other side. If I can figure out a way to get past the Foundation, they'd be unlikely to be able to apprehend me in Alagada. The simplest solution could be the best one. The first subject begins, and I realize that that is a huge if. The simplest solution is the one that's going to get me caught. Even with my knowledge of the inner workings of Foundation security, I can't exactly sneak past security and get into the Tower of London, one of the most well-guarded places in the world. Even if I came up with a plan, word of my treachery has spread by now. I'd be lucky to get within 100 miles of a Foundation, protected anomaly without being taken in. So the direct path is out.
If I can't find my way, I would have to decline, and that would be considerably rude.
The first, scherzando. Tension, like walking on a bed of needles. The oboe and the piccolo panic as the subject in the saxophone fails to calm them down. I need to not follow their lead. Can I brute force a new way? This is perhaps the safest maneuver. Simply follow in Percy's footsteps. Perhaps what I learned from my alchemical will allow me to access Alagada. I didn't get too far in my thaumaturgical studies, but in theory, I know enough to create a way, though the exact substances and steps would take some trial and error. Except, I don't have time for trial, and I certainly don't have time for error. I can no longer stall the Foundation's progress. Emma has certainly figured out what I hid from her by now, and saying, I know enough about alchemy is much like saying, I know enough about brain surgery to pull it off. It's better to have full knowledge before attempting it. If I'm not careful, I could cause lasting damage on this reality, or worse, bypass Alagada entirely and end up deep in the Neverment.
Plus, it's not every day that you're invited by a king, so showing up is logically shrewd.
The second subject begins, a beautiful venture that only leads back where it started, a Penrose staircase of a melody. The first subject tries to reassert itself periodically, but nothing comes of it. Perhaps the answer is to seek help from my fellow thieves. All together at Golgotha, that was what the baton said. That is what will bring us all together, supposedly. Only I've never met any of the other thieves. How would I identify them? Would anybody know how to find another way? More importantly, would they be willing to help me? Our goals align in the long term, but right now, it's hard to say.
The musicians are playing their grand toccata. I should depart without delay.
The second scherzando, the second subject, plays underneath. But even through the panic, it seems the upper woodwinds have things more under control. The sound is more subdued, sinister, whispering as the second subject fails to engage, as though the subject is about to be betrayed. I could turn myself in. The Foundation certainly wouldn't expect that. I might be able to convince them I have valuable information, make them take me to Alagada, then perform my duties there. The scherzando fades out of existence, not with a bang, but a whimper. That idea is easily the dumbest I've had so far. Supposing they believed me, they wouldn't let me go to Alagada. Supposing they did, there would be no chance to escape their watch.
Do you know how to get to Golgotha? For no one else on earth knows the way.
The two subjects combine somewhat messily. I'm unconvinced they're trying to combine cleanly. I wish I could write something this good. I've always loved music. I've just never been good at it. That is to say, I've always been perfectly fine at it, just never exceptional. But I watched people for whom music meant less easily surpass me, when it seemed like my life. So I changed tactics. At the Foundation, I learned more about the world that had fascinated me, but my love for music never wavered. It was only after years at the Foundation that I discovered psul Golgotha and understood that my entire life had been leading up to this, that I had a part to play, and that I would be united with the music that had meant so much to me someday.
I have combed every book, I have searched every map, but no one has a path that can be found.
The first movement theme awakens me from my reminiscing, and I realize something for the first time. The thieves got to be front and center at the event that changed world history, true. But they were crucified along with Jesus of Nazareth, and they weren't so lucky as to be resurrected. The penitent thief was never even mentioned until the Gospel of Luke. The earlier Gospel of Mark state both thieves mocked Jesus. They were merely thieves. What could they have possibly stolen that was equivalent to their lives? They were thieves, not arsonists, not abusers, not murderers. Simple thieves. And they died for their crimes. They publicly suffered and then died. Simple sins have intense consequences.
If the saint knows I'm late, then that would only end in flames, as Golgotha burns to the ground.
It's over. The symphony is over, and I'm still no closer to an answer. Only one thing makes sense. I am in way over my head.
If we play what was heard on Mount Golgotha, maybe they'd finally find some peace.
I'm on the verge of an idea. I can feel it poking from the back of my mind, but I don't understand it. Something about the third movement of symphony in B-flat. But what? The subjects? The scherzandos? The fugual nature of the piece? Or the recombination? No, it's something about the theme, the one from the first movement. The way something familiar comes back right when you least expect it. And with that, I'm hit with a sudden wave of clarity. I can't turn myself in, but perhaps there is somebody left there that I can trust. Perhaps there is one savage beast I could soothe yet.
Until then, how to get to Golgotha? It never seemed so far out of reach.
The words come flying from my fingers, quick and precise like the first subject, but the thoughts themselves are like the second subject. Circular, wishy-washy, vague, nonsensical. In the end, there is only one thing, one thought that matters. The point is, I'm in over my head, and I need your help, old friend. H, can you show me the way to Golgotha? Stuart, I anxiously await the response, counting the minutes. 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, too many. I can scarcely breathe. Until I see the response, I have a way in. And in Golgotha, I shall find the scores. Whatever happens now is all up to me, an impenitent thief. One way or another, this music will be heard. And one way or another, I will play a part.
Till the music that was lost is released.
No one talked. The room was quiet save for the sounds of Mike softly weeping in the corner and Zhao's too loud breathing. Emma took a long moment to center herself, then looked up into the accusatory eyes of Sandra D. She tried to keep that gaze, but guilt tore at her and she was forced to look away. She attempted to disguise the weakness by fumbling at the clasps on her combat harness, but she could feel the tips of her ears go hot as the shame of her failure burned through her chest like acid. The expedition into Golgotha had at least produced results, and she patted the pocket of her BDUs where John D's journal rested. But at what cost? June 24th, 3 days prior. Get your shit in gear, ladies. We've got 13 minutes until we're due at 2264A, and Director Ruslov doesn't like to be kept waiting. Emma put steel into her voice, trying to instill a confidence that she didn't yet feel into the men and women that had been assigned to her. They'd all gone through the simulators, again and again. ETA 11 had put more hours of training into the past few weeks than they had in the past few years, and they'd been pushed almost to mutiny by the grueling schedule that Emma had kept them to. In fact, she was fairly certain that the only thing that had kept them all from outright going on strike was that she had been right there with them, every step of the way. Now, the hardened veterans of ETA 11 were at least obeying her, albeit grudgingly, and the newcomers looked at her with nothing short of awe. She'd have to be careful about that, as she glanced over to catch Mike Carter doing exactly that. She gave him a wan smile and went back to fiddling with her gear. It didn't help that she'd read up on everything the Foundation had on Golgotha. While Dr. Narvaez's 2 excursions into the place hadn't resulted in his death, or even obvious madness, it was the report that she'd finally been cleared to read last night that had given her true pause. Okay, mission parameters. We're looking for clues regarding O12. Our research into the anomaly and the events surrounding it leads me to believe that our version might not be the only one in existence. We need to find confirmation if possible, but getting our hands on any other copies would be even better. She shakes her head, pushing back the mental image of Agent Papadopoulos laying in his hospital bed. Under no circumstances is anyone to go near the throne room. Our destination is the library. If we cannot get there, the mission is to be scrapped. If we hear any indication that the ambassador is in the city, the mission scraps. If anyone shows evidence of succumbing to the distractions of that place, the mission scraps. She takes another deep breath. I know you all have deep reservations about doing this. Hell, I do too. But if I'm correct, and all the evidence points to it, we have no real choice. It's this or nothing. She pauses again, looking out at the apprehensive faces looking back at her. We're professionals. You all know what to do. June 27th, present day. I don't give a fuck if the goddamn mission is going to be classified as a success. That mad woman nearly got all of us killed, and Hennessy might as well. D2047, need I remind you that continued good behavior is the only reason that you remain assigned to ETA 11? The distorted voice on the other side of the one-way mirror interrupted Sandra D's rant, and for a moment Dee stared at the glass with barely suppressed rage. So, we're back to that now, are we? I see. I give you assholes a decade of my life, get 2 commendations for valor in the field, and we're back to D2047, as if none of that fucking matters. She glared daggers at the glass and crossed her arms across her chest in helpless defiance. We are not here to discuss your classification, D2047. Just answer the question. Dee rolled her eyes at the mirror and muttered something under her breath. Fine. We entered Golgotha, SCP-2264-B. Whatever. We entered 2264-B through the gate in Martin Tower, on schedule. Stark had fed us some stupid line about all the precautions that were in place to ensure our safety, but that did shit to help those of us that knew better. We went in anyway, because that is our fucking job. And Zhao believed her. She sighed and uncrossed her arms to rest them on the table in front of her. She stared at her fingers for a few moments before shaking her head and looked back up at the mirror. I don't know fuck about shit in that place. We read all the reports, went through all the training, but none of that really mattered once we got there. I'm pretty sure that 2264A opened someplace new every time we activated, because we ended up in the palace proper as soon as we stepped through. She paused again and looked back down at her fingers. The first few hours were fine. We never saw that wandsman guy Narvaez was babbling on about, but the library was easy enough to find. Seeing people fucking on platforms built sideways into the goddamn walls was distracting, but the filters worked well enough. A sarcastic snort escapes from between her teeth. Narvaez said we'd look different over there, and he wasn't wrong. It didn't feel any different on the inside. I was still wearing all my shit, but I caught my reflection in a mirror. I didn't know a regulation issue helmet and face shield could look like a stylized rat mask, but it did. Mike tried fiddling with his mask until Stark yelled at him about leaving the shit on and... The library, D2047. The voice interrupted her again, and Dee snarled an invective in response before spitting off to the side and continuing. June 24th, SCP-2264-B. Carter, cut that shit out. Emma wasn't certain if she was speaking over their communications channel or if her voice was being distorted by the mask she wore. The voice-to-text was still working, and she could see the words she just said, scrolling across the glass plate of her visor. The others didn't look like they were wearing their gear, but that had been expected, planned for. She looked around at the bizarre architecture of the building, trying to find her bearings. She'd interviewed Narvaez extensively, read every scrap she could get her hands on about this place. She'd thought she'd been ready to navigate through this maze, but now she was having second thoughts. I'm pretty sure this is the palace. At least, this looks like the type of decor Dr. Narvaez described in his reports. If that's the southern part of the city, then the library should be this way. She pointed down the long hallway to their left, then quickly looked back towards the group as the distant spatial distortions played merry hell with the optics in her helmet. She caught Hennessy's eyes, and the sparkle there told her he had noticed the reaction. He gave her a thumbs up, and she just shook her head and started walking down the hallway. The walk wasn't nearly as unpleasant as the view had promised, though the almost random way that the floor seemed to tilt and angle was just as confusing as she'd anticipated. The others seemed to enjoy themselves, quietly joking among themselves with the familiarity of long companionship. Even Flores seemed to have integrated herself into the team in a way that irked Emma. She thought briefly about quieting the team, but decided that their relaxed chatter was a better alternative to tense silence. Not like the locals seemed to even notice them. She averted her gaze from a twisting group of naked bodies that cavorted in one of the alcoves off to the side, then looked up as Zhao called a halt. "Commander, you said to look for a door with an open book on it, right?" She gestured at the elaborately decorated door in front of her. The double panels of the door was carved to look like an open book, its pages slightly curled, and covered with a scene straight from one of the odder portions of the Garden of Earthly Delights. Emma grimaced at the obscene carvings and nodded. "Yeah, that's the library. Let's go. June 27th, present day." So we spent a few hours in there just scoping the place out. Mike Carter paused to take a sip from the glass of water in front of him. I guess we were scoping the place out. Flores and Stark were looking for something specific. He shook his head, still holding the glass. I'm used to not knowing everything, We get sent to places all the damn time without a full intel load, and that's just how this shit is sometimes. He raises the glass to his lips, his hand trembling a bit as he does so. He frowned at that, then threw back the rest of the water like he was taking a shot. But I was always confident before that the commander, that Richards was telling us everything he knew. Like, he was only keeping the secrets he was required to. The uniformed internal security officer across the table from him frowned. "You know why Richards was removed from his position. He deliberately lied to you and to us. He's a traitor to the Foundation." Carter shrugged and appeared to draw into himself. I know. I guess the guy had a real good reason for doing what he did. He said he was protecting the Foundation, and He trailed off and looked down at the table. For a few moments he was silent, then began again when the officer prompted him to continue. "So, we was looking through the place. It was a hell of a library, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't never seen books on the ceiling before, and not just stuck there like some kind of prank. There were ladders and staircases going every which way. You could start up one, make a turn, and be sideways to the one you just walked up. There was places that just sorta, stuck out at odd angles and shit. We was expecting that, with all the non-Euclidean training we went through, so I wasn't too turned around by it." He gestured with his hands, crossing them about in front of him, as if pantomiming a slow World War I era aerial dogfight. "The place went every which way, like I said, and we was just getting the hang of things when Stark called out over the radio. I was with Zhao. Stark had us split into buddy groups, so I was with the LT. D and H was on the other side of the room, and Stark was with Flores down on the floor." He paused for a moment, a contemplative expression on his face. "Yeah, so we hear Stark call across the radio, and I look across to see D and H climbing down the stairs towards them. There was no quick way to get there, 'cause just jumping a banister seemed like an awful bad idea. Zhao took the lead like she does, and we started heading back." The officer nodded and made a few notes in the pad on the table in front of him. After a few moments, he looked back up. "And was that when you saw 2264-4? Is that what you're calling him now? I guess that's when the others did. I never saw him." The officer frowned at that, looking up from his notes. In Zhao's testimony, she stated that Stark had been in conversation with 2264-4 for almost an hour. It was Carter's turn to frown, and he scratched lightly at his head, a confused look on his face. "Did she say that? I don't know nothing about that. I distinctly remember Stark calling, then Zhao leading us down the staircase over to them, and seeing D and H across the way. It took us about 20 minutes to get back to where Stark was, and she was all excited and shit, talking to Flores about some book she'd found. June 24th, SCP-2264-B. This whole place was a hazard of every conceivable type. The music playing constantly from everywhere was filled with compulsive effects. The art on the walls seemed to want to draw her in, gave the impression that she could, quite literally in some cases, step through their ornate frames and join in whatever revelry that was depicted there. Even the very air they were breathing tasted odd, like she was breathing in fumes from some heady drug-laced incense. Emma shook her head for what seemed like the 1,000th time. She was surrounded by forgotten and forbidden knowledge. Every bookshelf she looked at seemed to be filled with treatises by authors she vaguely recognized. Empedocles, Anaxagoras, Heron of Alexandria, Ficino, musicians, philosophers, mathematicians, theologians. The library was astounding and deeply unsettling. She sighed and looked over at Flores, who was busily poring over the books stacked neatly on a nearby shelf. She regretted lying to the woman, but it was the only way to both maintain protocol and keep the knowledge she had to herself. She shook her head again and returned to contemplating the small glass case in front of her. The compulsion to break the glass and withdraw the instrument that hung there was immense. She'd been looking for this. She'd known it was here. It had been something Dr. Narvaez had said, an offhanded comment about something he remembered seeing in the library. It was a quill, made from bone, one end hardened and sharpened to a point. Dr. Narvaez had mentioned something about how even the writing implements were strange, that there had been a quill that still had wet ink stains on it. Except that it wasn't ink. Wet, yes, but it wasn't ink, it was blood. Yosef Ben Matityahu's pen. What significance does it mean to you, I wonder? She turned, startled. The library had been empty of people when they arrived, and she'd only seen or heard the other members of ETA 11 since entering. For a moment she swayed, her vision and balance confused by the sudden impression that she was surrounded by people that she couldn't see, feel, or hear. The old man in front of her reached out a bony hand and steadied her, a crooked smile on his gentle features. Careful, girl. This is not a place to lose one's way. Emma nodded, distractedly, her hand briefly dropping to the table beside her as she fought off the sudden wave of vertigo. I'm sorry, I was just startled. I didn't see you come up. She shook her head again, then looked back at the quill in its case. Yosef Ben Matityahu. That name sounds familiar. The old man chuckled as he stepped up beside her to look into the case with her. He stood barely to her shoulder, and he was dressed in ornate black robes that reminded her of the cassocks that she'd seen the priests wear whenever the news showed a story from the Vatican. Yes, he gently stroked the glass in front of them. Though you might know him as Josephus,